Well, it's 6:30 and I'm going to call this meeting to order. Let's all stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. On the agenda is the roll call. Roll call, please.
Peter Backren,
Present.
trustee Knutson,
Present.
trustee Smith,
Here.
trustee Thomas Markle,
Here.
trustee Weber, trustee Valentine,
Here.
trustee Stelter.
Here. All right, next item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. Can I get a motion, please? Yeah.
We relocate the flag policy discussion to new business, or I'm sorry, old business. Been discussed before.
Okay, can I get a second on that?
Second.
All in favor or discussion? Okay, anything from the public? All right, all in favor of moving flag policy from new business to old business? Aye. Opposed? All right, motion passes.
I have another proposed change to the agenda. I'd like to propose that we remove the public censure of trustee Markle from the agenda.
Do I have a second? All right, that motion fails for lack of a second. So any other changes to the agenda? Yeah.
I'd like to move the property, the insurance, both the workman's comp and maybe consent agenda.
Okay, do I have a second on that?
Second it.
Discussions? All right. Anything from the public? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that motion passes. The property and casualty and the workers' comp are moved to the consent agenda. Any other changes? As long as we're at it. All right, seeing none, we have an agenda now, which has the property casualty renewal and the workman's comp moved under the consent agenda. We have staff reports, public hearing, unfinished business will be the flag policy. New business with the flag policy and the two other items removed. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that motion passes. Next on the agenda is announcements. Does anyone have any announcements? Yes.
You know, I'm just not sure we've introduced Nick to the
Oh,
meeting. I think he's been at special meetings.
Yes,
Don't know. I think he's been at public meetings, so it's gonna be good.
all right. Yes, this is, if you ever want to look up on the wall, this is our new attorney, Mr. Nick Cotton Days. Nick, welcome to him.
Thanks very much, and it's
And
good
he
to
gets-
see you, Mayor Trustee. Yeah. Thank you for that introduction, Trustee Smith. I appreciate that.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Kinsey.
The Parks Committee will be meeting on the 18th of October at Lee's Park, 4 o'clock. We have Caroline Kilbane coming from the BLM. We're going to be working on the mountain bike access through Apple Valley up into Jungle. So that will be again on October 18th at Lee's Park at 4 o'clock. We'll have beyond there.
All right, thank you. Any other announcements? All right, seeing none, let's move on to recognition of community and guests. I would like to again welcome everyone. This evening, we are pleased to have you in attendance. We welcome your comments, questions, and suggestions. To address the board, please raise your hand and wait to be called on by the mayor. Then come to the podium and state your name and the street on which you live. If you are on Zoom, please use the raise hand function to be recognized. If you are on the phone, doesn't look like we have anyone on the phone. All comments should be addressed to the mayor only and be no longer than 3 minutes. You may speak once on each agenda item. It will help the board to hear and understand your comments if they are clear, concise, and respectful. Please present factual information. Personal attacks of any kind are not in order, as well as derogatory or demeaning statements about anyone speaking without being recognized by the chair or speaking on topics not related to the agenda item being discussed, except during the public comment period. Questions or comments to the staff or board will not be answered during the meeting, but responded to later. Until you are called upon by the mayor, please be respectful of those around you and those who have the floor by remaining silent. Please take any side conversations out of the rooms. All right. Who would like to address the board on a subject that is not on the agenda? Yes, Ms. Watson?
Suzanne Watson, I live on Second Street. I want to speak to that sign that you have on the wall back there. It seems like you're using it to inform policy now. That was never agendized. It was a spontaneous motion in a meeting. And now all of a sudden it seems to be a significant policy statement for the censure that's going to be happening tonight. But I'd like to talk about the word fair and how ambiguous it actually is. If you go to Webster's Knight Collegiate New Dictionary, fair is one definition is pleasing to the eye or mind because of fresh, charming, or flawless qualities. Another definition of fair is superficially pleasing. The definition I like is 6A. Marked by impartiality, honesty, free from self-interest, prejudice or favoritism. But yet another definition, which is really interesting, is open to legitimate pursuit, attack, or ridicule, like fair game. If you're going to be adopting words like that as policy, it's not fitting for a board in this type of setting to be so ambiguous with your language. It needs to be talked in the context of a resolution or a new policy statement, and it needs to be agendized. This was not agendized. This was a kind of slapdash vote. I thought it was maybe humorous at the end of the meeting, and it's really inappropriate to start using that now. And the thing that was so ironic is during that meeting, you were not fair. Our laws are designed to be fair. They're legislated with the vote of the whole board, with input from the public. And when you have an ordinance, that's a law, and it's designed for consistency and fairness. And if you want to vary from the law, if it doesn't say within the law that you can amend this, you have to go through a legislative process. You can't decide because a majority of people in the room don't want you to follow the law that you don't have to follow it. That's not fair. The laws are there for consistency and for some sort of, for fairness. It's for consistency. So people know what to expect.
Your time's almost up.
Yes, I know. So anyway, I would like you to take that down. I find it rather offensive until you actually have had an honest discussion about it. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to address the board on something that is not on the agenda? Yes, Ms. Calvis.
Hi, Susie Calvis, 1866 Harding Road. I just want to thank you all for an amazing, successful Harvest Fest weekend. Our hearts were just filled with joy to see the turnout, the revenue that was brought in. And I want to especially thank Public Works and Corey. Corey got the flags up. You have the banners, the light pole banners. In record time for us to have the festival. And so I just wanted to say thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes.
I'm Margaret Hollander, 1018 3rd Street. Well, I just want to say that I'm quite disturbed about this town and have been for quite some time. I feel like everyone needs to be responsible to always be at these meetings so we can make sure our town runs honorably. But why is that? Why? Why do we have to always watch over what goes on here? During the 17 years I have lived here, I have seen zoning changes to suit a corrupt city manager and people with money drowning out the voices of our local neighborhood families. Now building permits and rules they are supposed to represent depend on and change depending on who is asking for them. Is that right? Because they seem to quite obviously change all the time. When I first moved here, you had to get a building permit to change your fence. The building code inspector put a notice on my door when I had materials in my carport, as though I was going to do something corrupt, and I had to deal with that. From all I've learned, the great loss of water 5 years ago has never been dealt with. And now we increase in monthly fees. That makes absolutely no sense. Where's the money going? Who's being responsible? And you guys are the ones that are supposed to be trustees of our town. So I just want some accountability, and I don't want to have to be constantly watching. I want people to take care of me. I'm supposed to be a resident here that, you know, the government, I guess we're the government, so here we go.
Thank you. Anyone else would like to address something that's not on the agenda? All right, seeing none, next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. Can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda? So moved. Get a second? Discussion by the board. Yes, Mr. Markle?
On the source of items. Pages 232 to 35 or so, where it starts. I noticed that there's a due date of withdrawal of October 1st, 2022, and there's a due date for our decision of September 30th, 2022, both of which have passed. So we really, I assume we can still get insurance through SURSA. I don't think that they would drop us for passing a due date. I don't think we really have any other choices, right? There's nobody else that will insure us. So we have to do this, but I would like to have been told about it before it was due.
Okay. Anything else?
No.
All right, anything else from the board? Yes.
I just wanted to say one thing about the meeting minutes from the last meeting, and I want to thank Corinne for putting in all 16 of the evaluation criteria that we went through for the grant. That's very helpful. Thank you.
All right, anything else from the board? Anything from the public? Yeah, it's passed. Yes.
Michelle Patterson, 302 Second Street. I also wanted to comment on the SURSA information that's in the packet. So last year, about this time, it's actually September 28th, 2021. SURSA information was brought to the board, and the board was told you have to make a decision tonight because we're in the deadline. The board pushed back at that time and said next year we want quotes by March of 2022 so that we can make an informed decision and look at alternatives. You've received nothing. You've received no alternatives. So this goes back to what I was talking about in the budget session. You're not a board that looks at where we can save money, where it might even be possible to save money, because you're approving this without even considering alternatives, and you've not been given an opportunity by your staff to do so.
Okay. Anything else from the public? All right, seeing none, we have a motion and a second to accept the consent agenda. All in favor? I oppose. All right, that motion passes. Next, we have staff reports. Town administrator's report is Verson.
I did not have a written report in the packet, and there are many things going on, but unfortunately I did not have an opportunity to write down, provide an update at this meeting. But I'm open to any questions about anything that's going on at the board level. I can let the board know that I'm currently working heavily on updating outstanding tasks and upcoming task lists for that, working on things that we can get completed while I'm still here. Compiling information, emails links, websites, data, things like that that are going to be necessary for the clerk and administrator coming into the town, as well as providing any training and information I can to our existing staff to assist in that process. I am considering some shifting of duties to, for staff that we have on hand right now, depending upon what happens with the fulfilling of the clerk and administrator position, so that there is someone in that can do some of the pieces of work that I do that our deputy clerk and other individuals in different departments do not do currently. So that is why you don't have a written report. I'm trying to get things done and gather a lot of information for incoming people.
Thank you. Questions for the town administrator? Yeah.
I have a question for Corinne, but actually I want to point something out in the agenda. This family cannot be a consent agenda item.
No.
And you didn't mean it to be.
No, I apologize. Thank you for that. I did put and if that's under consent agenda, that was a misattachment. There was a CML knowledge document that was included. That actually was meant to be included under the reports. Thank you, because I had forgotten I put that in there. This is the family, there's changes that they're making to requirements for employees. And most communities, I know Nick can speak to this, he and I have discussed it, are opting out. And so if the town wants to participate, you can. It would not be my recommendation for our size. But if you don't plan to participate, you have to opt out of the family changes that are being proposed to requirements for time, and there's a bunch of different things. And so that CML handout was to give you some of that information. I know that attorney Nick Cotton Bays has stated that he's drafted a multitude of the resolutions to opt out of this program, and this will be something that will be on an upcoming agenda for the board to discuss and make a decision on before the end of the year.
Yeah, well, one of the things I want to point out is that in order for us to take the vote, there has to be special notice which must be provided to employees in writing.
Yes.
So has that been done?
Not yet, no, which is why it's not on the agenda.
Okay, and so that has to be done. And then it seems like there was 180 days before the state would make a decision based on our vote. So I don't know if we're going to be caught in a beginning of 2023 180-day quasi, or are we going to be forced to accept it? So that I just, in reading this, that's one question I have. And the second question, I think it would be really nice is if we could see what the fiscal impact was of the town paying 4.5 cents into the program for all of the staff, because we would have, if we opt in, and then there are many provisions to allow employees to still do this, even if the town doesn't opt in. So there are a lot of permutations in this that are really important, that I think if you haven't read it, it's not an easy read, but the voters voted for it. And that was to provide 12 weeks of leave to employees, and they get paid a certain level of pay. So it's a pretty important thing. So if you could look into have we ruined our time for letting employees have a say?
Mr. Cotton Days, do you have the answer to that question?
Thank you, Mayor. I do have the answer. So I looked into the 180-day, the lag time that Trustee Smith referenced, and what I understand from the state, and we did contact the state, they will, so long as a town opts out prior to the end of the year, the town will not be required to cover that portion of the family leave program. So that 4 cents. But one thing that I should mention, excuse me, is that even if the town decides to opt out, employees may voluntarily still participate. The town just won't have to contribute its portion, but an employee still could participate in the program and voluntarily have part of his or her paycheck deposited into the family leave program. So in addition to that, I'm not sure if there was another question that I could try and answer.
Okay, I guess not. No, that was this raised my eyebrows a little bit when I read it, that we were running out of time. So I do have a question, if I might. I have a question for Corinne, but I can certainly,
Yeah, it was the same topic.
same topic. Okay, go ahead.
So it'd be important to know where the employees stand on this. Like, I'd like to know, we have 17 employees, 15 want it, 2 don't, or I'd like to know kind of a vote from the employees would be important before making a decision.
Okay. Ms. Finch. So I just have a question for Corinne, and I just learned that the Creative Coalition is planning to shut down the street on Saturday, December 5th, 4th, whatever the day is. So here is we had made a motion on August 17th for you to present changes to us onto the 11-180 ordinance about street applications, so we could not be getting a knot again. So we have to have, it can't go into effect for 30 days after the ordinance. So I'm hoping you have an ordinance ready to bring us at the next meeting to keep us out of that.
Yes,
No.
it will be on the next agenda.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the town administrator? All right, seeing none, let's move on to any finance treasurer, anything to add, Cindy, to what you've already given us in the budget?
I don't have anything.
Okay.
Thank you.
Police report.
So you can kind of see there, hit on a couple of the big points. One of the important ones we accomplished here this last month. Met with faculty and staff at County K, they had a staff meeting. Just kind of went over with them what they can expect from our department in the event of an emergency. Who's going to be responding, kind of times involved. Just trying to sort of explain the chaos based on other events we've had around the country and looking at those kind of what's going on with that. Just they have an idea of a little bit of planning or preparation. And then we went into some other things as far as what we would like to do with the schools, being involved, hanging out with the kids, helping them PE, coming up to plays, eating lunch, doing some of those things. And we got great feedback from them. They're very on board with that. So that was something our department's focused on, and we have a good relationship with them on that. The other thing we kind of worked on, we coordinated with Fox Police Department, and we're going to be putting on a driver training course with them. This is also a goal of our department to continue relationships we have with the other departments in our county, work with them, share training, so we can kind of spread our some of our costs out and use each other's resources, so we're not solely dependent upon just ourselves. It also helps us with those relationships as far as if we have a major event, we need to work together. We know each other, we know names, we know how everybody operates, communication styles. So that's something we're working on, and that's headed in the right direction. We also got our shipment from the Colorado Department of Public Health of Watson. Some people call it Narcan, or sort of change to agree, but this is to help us fight some of this fentanyl issues. Our office will be getting trained on that. They've had some training, but we want to do a little bit more, look at some policy stuff before we get that fully implemented. But that is something we're working on, so our guys will carry that at their discretion. And then the last little bit I have, some of you may be aware, we wanted to set up a program and make use of some of the programs that some of the other departments use in the county for mental health. And we did reach out, and we're using a co-responder program and a mobile crisis response unit. So when we contact somebody for various reasons, a lot of times when they have an issue, law enforcement gets called, and we are not always the best person to help them get out of a situation. So these programs we have set up now, we can call them and they will come up. And twice now, the mobile crisis unit has come up, spoke with those people, and that's helped prevent us from just cuffing somebody and taking them to jail or doing a medical hold on them. It's really been a valuable tool that we've already used in the last 30 days, several times. The last thing I have is a thank you to CDOT. we reached out to CDOT as part of this coordinated driver training, and they were gracious enough to provide us with 50 of their older traffic cones they're not gonna be using, so we didn't have to buy those. Public Works knows we won't use those for a lot of things, so thank you to them. That was very generous.
Okay, question for Lavender. From the board, yeah.
Yeah, we had a couple of fatal accidents yesterday. I know that they weren't in town limits. But I was wondering if we have any way to try and encourage people to slow down, or like what we can do in town to try and mitigate things like that.
Yeah, that's good. We're gonna be putting some stuff up on our PD page. We're kind of gonna work with the program, some use seatbelt stuff. That would kind of be our, one of our big points right now is seatbelts. Do what we can to encourage everybody to wear seatbelts, be good role models. We're bad at it too. We don't do it as often as we should. We need to do a better job. So that's one of the things I would encourage everybody to tell your friends, tell your family, wear your seatbelts. The other part of that is, you know, trying to just pay attention to your surroundings a little bit. You know, we have a lot of people out and about. It's fall. We have events going on. We have artists, we have all these things. Just try to pay attention, slow down a little bit. Live in a beautiful area, just enjoy it. You don't always have to be rushing everywhere we go.
Goodbye. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yeah, I do have a question. There's a new designation on the blotter, which is CLO. I haven't seen that one before. What does that mean?
Closed case.
So a bin inspection has a closed case after it?
It would be closed. So the way that works, part of that is the software we use with Spillman. When we call and generate a call through Spillman with dispatch. That way we have a record of it. We input all of our information. Then we close that case, that incident. That way it's not just an open case for all of eternity for our department. And as we get closer to the end of the year, I'll have some data, some updates on, you know, types of cases we closed, total number of closed cases for the year. That'll be available to kind of everybody, but that's the designation.
Okay. Anything else? Yeah.
I just happened to scroll in here, so if there's an animal control entry, and I'm just curious what happened, and if it was a stray dog, what did you do?
It would depend. I'm not familiar with exactly which one you're talking about.
It's on the 22nd of September, that probably doesn't help, but I just happened to notice it.
It depends on the situation. If the dogs are available for us to get a hold of or catch and they have tags, we'll try and contact the owner. If they're not, depending on the area, how busy we are, how many staff calls we have, we will attempt to knock on some doors, do what we can, ask around if there's people walking. Outside of that, we don't have a good option for loose dogs. We don't have anywhere to take them. We don't have where to hold them or board them. That's a project we're working on. There's some discussion we'd like to get with the county about possibly sharing a facility, but in the future, basement.
Anything else from the board? All right, seeing that, anything from the public? Yes, Ms. Patterson. Yeah, please stand up, come to the podium, state your name and the street on which you.
Patterson, Rio Grande. The accident that was at the 4 crossroads, the 2 crossroads. Or Crawford Roads. 10 responders, law enforcement responders, arrived, and none of them had jaws of life or a stretcher. Where is that in this town or this county? Is there, where is it available and why with 10 units responding, no one had?
Yeah, so, I can not speak for all the other law enforcement agencies. In our agencies, we don't carry the stretchers or the jaws like we would depend on. And just so happens, I've got an EMS guy right here that may be able to shed some more light on that.
That's where we have our equipment. The EMS does not carry jaws of life. There's a limited amount of space. You need training for it, so we have the fire for extrication. And we carry stretchers. The firemen also have a basket stretcher, but unless you have somebody that's far away from the road, it's not ideal to put them in that because it's not a complete control of the C-spine. So basically, we respond with the fire department, and I heard that call. I could not respond to that call because the second unit of the EMS was down. We have a bad injector and it wouldn't run. So we had Hotchkiss was responding as well as Paonia, and that was taken care of that way. And basically, it's budgetary too. A Jaws of Life costs about $40,000.
Yeah, understandable, but it's, you know, accidents are getting serious and that's life saving. And all that. Yes. It's terrible, but.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, the other question is, why is carrying Narcan up to the discretion of police? Why isn't it across the board?
A lot of it comes down to the application of it, and whether the officer feels 100% comfortable using that. There's a lot of training that goes on with that. Several officers are opting to carry it, not necessarily for the administration on various people in the community, but for if they're exposed or if their partner is exposed. And, you know, as a department, we would talk that over here. Are you okay? Yeah. Now, the state, I believe it is SB 15053 gives first responders the ability to administer that, but we have not got to the point yet where we are requiring that by policy, requiring our officers to administer that. We are fortunate here in particular that our EMS is oftentimes beats us there or is right there with us. They're much more adept at that, but we want to have the ability. So we need that right now. Well, it is a situation where you have another officer that needs it, or the officer's comfortable. He has it on him. It is available.
Anything else from the public? Yes, Ms. Watson.
Suzanne Watson. I was interested to hear the Lamager's report on the dog, you know, dogs at large. And I'd like to suggest that we have budget season here. And it sounds like it's something that you could spend back the badge money on, because it does have to do with law enforcement, and there is a public safety and public safety threat to dogs at large. So I encourage you to find a more, start thinking about a more permanent solution for the dog issue. And I think you could spend some back the badge money on it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else from the public? All right, let's move on to Public Works. Mr. Heinger.
Submitted a report, and the only thing I want to add is we did have a bunch of meters come in Wednesday, and so far we've installed 31 of those since Wednesday, so the guy's been knocking those out pretty fast, and not all of them are gonna be easy, but so like I'm sure as we go along, the numbers that we get per day will probably go down just because some of them aren't as easy as other ones, you know. We've also been looking at ways to reduce costs. We're trying only taking the trash truck down twice a week. I don't know if we get a heavy trash day, it could hurt us because we'll have to come back and finish the trash route, but I think for right now, it's worth trying for a little bit to see if it saves us any money.
Questions? Yeah, Mr. Sullivan.
I just have a statement that since we haul trash so far and the price of diesel isn't going up again. I suggest that we consider a fuel surcharge if it gets up further than it is right now. They're predicting that it's going up significantly again. It's all politics, don't know, but if diesel goes up to like $5 a gallon, it uses quite a bit of diesel to go to the landfill. And cutting down the trips is good, but we're coming to home heating season too. And one of the things that happens in home heating season is hot ashes in the trash. And we could have a trash truck fire, which could be a problem. So we just need to pay attention.
Thank you.
And you can't always see it. That's the problem.
Anything else from the board?
I just wonder if something about hot ashes could be put on the blue bill to caution people and tell them maybe the right way to make sure they're out. I don't know what that is. We have a new stove, so I'm gonna learn. But maybe that a little public service announcement might be good. Yeah, I have heard of those trash trucks getting on fire. Not good. Thank you.
Okay, anything from the public? Yeah. Whoever had their hand up. All right, oh, Michelle.
Madison, Second Street again. I wanted to say thank you for the consideration of cost savings on trash. That's great. And I wonder if the town might consider another way to potentially save on our trash trips could be in town recycling. And even if it was done at cost, if you could make it less expensive than trash, that might be an incentive for people to move more of what they have into recycling, reducing the trash, reducing the number of trips, and maybe you just do one trip for each every week. One for a combined trip with both recycling and trash. Thanks.
Thank you. This one.
Quick question, what the meters are you talking remote read meters?
We are
How
confirming.
many are left to do still?
So we ordered in 100 total, well, we ordered 200, 100 arrived. And so we still have 160
Okay.
or so to.
And then I was just curious, what's the beacon? Does that tie in with the remote read or is that something? I won't.
So basically, it's an attachment, and so the meters have a head,
Okay,
and from that, it has a cable that goes up to a radio
okay.
antenna. And we can read them remotely.
It's the same thing that we have on the other meters.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Beacon's the updated program.
Okay, yes, you can do. All right. All right, let's move on then to unfinished business and the flag policy. That is way at the end.
Yeah,
Yeah, get it. Number on that.
I don't think it's in there.
It is, it's way at the end.
I saw it was, that was first up.
It is at the bottom. Yeah, way. Page 257. Oh.
Oh, okay, yeah, just like.
All right. Oh, yes. So with this, then Mr. Markle, would you and Mr. Valentine like to talk about this and
I guess, suppose, yeah, we're on to page 257 of the packet. There's a link that goes to the current draft policy recommendation, draft flag policy recommendation. And all this is the same thing that we had before. That has the changes incorporated that we made motions on. I forget what I can get you a difference if you want that. But we struck the change, whatever, to government speech, all the fluffy words, the government speech, part 3 was stricken entirely. And I think there was another edit, I can't remember off the top of my head. Aside from that, it was handed off to Corinne for, so we could all give input to it. And I'm sitting on it waiting for us to hire an attorney to review it. And that's all I know.
okay. Mr. Cutton-Days, I believe you have something to add to this.
I do. Thank you, Mayor. And Thank you to the board for giving me an audience on this issue. Sorry, I have a little bit of a cold. So my comments tonight are really specific to section B of the proposed policy in the context of the free speech clause of the First Amendment. And Trustee Markle, you just mentioned government speech. So it does seem like the board has a handle on that issue and sort of the differences between government speech and the free speech clause, recognizing that the government must be able to decide what to say, speak for the community and formulate policies, versus when something is opened up for the free expression of public speech. Section B, though, does somewhat blur that distinction because it invites members of the public to participate by putting up ceremonial, commemorative, and special occasion flags. So that really does raise the question of whether the town's intent is to speak for itself or rather to regulate private expression. So that's one issue I've seen with the policy. There was a case, and I'm not saying, I should say from the start that the policy violates the Constitution or as applied could violate the free speech clause of the First Amendment. But I just wanted to raise some issues for the board to see if the board would be interested in potentially adding some criteria that would allow the board to distinguish among messages and viewpoints, which it would be allowed to do because the board has deemed this issue government speech and has only allowed ceremonial flags in that context. So there was a case, a Supreme Court case in May of 2022 that involved the city of Boston, and it addressed facts pretty similar to what's at issue here. And in that case, there was a man named Shirtliff, I'm not sure how to pronounce his name, but he asked the city of Boston if he could raise a ceremonial flag on one of their flagpoles in front of their city hall. The city denied that request because it was a Christian flag. And the reason that the city gave for denying it was they were worried about that potentially being representative of them as the government and violating the free exercise clause of the Constitution. But the Supreme Court took up the issue to decide whether the Boston was actually using these flagpoles for government speech or if they had opened it up to the free exchange of ideas. And the court looked at what Boston had done in the past. They had allowed groups holding ceremonies at the plaza in front of the city hall for years, 12 years, to hang their ceremonial flags in conjunction with certain events. And lots of the flags, for example, were a pride flag, flags of different countries, banners honoring emergency medical service workers and others. So what the court eventually looked at was whether the flag flying program that Boston had implemented, they didn't have a written policy, but whether that was actually government speech. And ultimately, the Supreme Court decided that Boston hadn't actually been expressing government speech, and because they had opened the flagpoles up to public use, were actually allowing the public to express their own messages and thus denying the viewpoint of Christianity in this instance was actually suppression of Mr. Shirtliff's right to free expression. So what I'm saying here is the city of Boston hadn't made any denials prior to the time that Shirtlift came forward and made the request. They had allowed all other flags of any other viewpoint and then denied this specific viewpoint. The Supreme Court really ignored the issue of the fact the argument that there was free expression. That wasn't really addressed in the case. And I think that's something that the town doesn't have to address in this instance. But what I think is the important takeaway from this case is that the town of Boston or the city of Boston had no criteria or any sort of meaningful involvement in the selection of flags or crafting their messages. And that's why the court ended up classifying the third-party ceremonial flag raisings as private and not government speech. So if you look at this policy, it doesn't speak about views specifically, other than to state in the recitals that this is government speech and that the town does not intend on opening this up to expressions of personal speech. So I think if the board were open to adding some criteria here, that this policy would be more defensible and the board would be in the town would be less prone to challenges based on the First Amendment if it were to deny a flag based on a particular viewpoint moving forward. So that's what I had to say on that. And I have another comment, but I think this is a good time to let the board take over the discussion.
Yes, Mr. Mark.
Thank you. I appreciate your comprehensive and concise summary of Shirtlift v. Boston. It definitely informed a lot of our decision making and how this was phrased. I know that most of the board members are familiar with it because we've discussed it at previous meetings. And thank you for making the clarity of the finding of the court distinct, because I think that there's been a lot of misunderstanding about why they determined there was a violation of personal speech. So beyond that, I think that if you have, you said you have proposed language, that's something that proposed criteria, or if you think that our involvement as described could be elaborated or changed in some way to make it more meaningful, then I think that we would all be probably welcome to whatever suggestions, recommendations you have.
Thank you, Trustee Markle. And I think I will say that the Supreme Court didn't go as far to say as you need to have a written policy on viewpoints. But they did give a nod to the San Jose policy in that case, which does contain specific criteria. It's pretty narrow. They allow the flying of pro sports team flags and things like that, and flags of foreign nations. But I think it could be broader. The criteria in the policy, if the board wanted to add criteria, could be broader than that. And perhaps it could be prohibitive language stating things like hateful or discriminatory language messages are not those that the board wants to express as government speech. One nuance that I would add here is I think it's pretty clear the flagpoles that are discussed in the recitals, the DMEA facilities, those are clearly areas where the town would express government speech. Same with light poles and transmission poles and right-of-way. I think that is something that a court would clearly determine are areas where a government would express its own ideas. One thing I noticed about the definition of street flag, it does say displayed above a town street or right of way, including sidewalks. Might want to refine that definition in case somebody's flying a flag off their own private property that extends into the right of way. I don't know if the board has addressed that issue at this point. But is that something that the board seeks to regulate as well? I think it's harder to potentially discriminate between viewpoints in that instance than it is on a transmission pole or a light pole. So that's another issue that I wanted to raise as well.
Anything else from the board? Mark, we get Bell. Anyone else?
Just to make sure I understand, your recommendation, to satisfy the criteria requirement, as evidenced by the San Jose flag policy, which, was also, we used that as the basis, to begin this. But your, recommendation to have things that are strictly prohibited. And your example was, flag that invites hate speech. Is that correct?
That was my example. And yes, I think it was also an example to say that it could be prohibitive language. Doesn't necessarily have to be. I would encourage the board to think about what type of criteria it would want to see, because I don't want to invent the policy, but it could be prohibitive or it could be permissive.
Okay. Thank you for that distinction. In the previous iteration of this, there was a third category on part B that did that. And we took it out. It read, the following flags are explicitly forbidden from display as a ceremonial, commemorative, or special occasion flag or street flag under any circumstances. A, flags of a religious movement, and B, flags of a political party or candidate. And we struck that in the last one because we thought that it was discriminatory. But what I just heard is that adding permissive language rather than discriminatory language would also satisfy the necessity for us to have criteria to fly flags. Right?
Yes, correct. Yeah, and I will just say that typically when you're talking about the First Amendment, viewpoint discrimination is strictly prohibited. So it's interesting. It's a complete opposite when you're talking about government speech. You want to clarify what viewpoints are allowable and what viewpoints are not allowable, because otherwise it's going to be, you're going to be opening it up to the free exchange of ideas. And in that instance, you wouldn't be able to deny any viewpoints. So that's why I think those criteria are important. And the interesting piece about the number 3 that had been removed is that, that was part of the written policy. And I did make a brief comment that the viewpoint doesn't necessarily need to be in written policy. And I did recognize, I think that this policy did look a lot like the San Jose policy. And I think the board was smart to follow that because of the Supreme Court giving the nod to that policy in its decision. But the court didn't say that it had to be in writing, but I think what has to be clear, if it's not in the policy, these criteria, is on the record of each decision that the board makes. Here is why we have come to the conclusion to approve or deny this flag. And if it's denied, you have to be prepared to deny others that express the same or similar viewpoint. And you have to be prepared to allow flags that express a similar viewpoint than ones that you've approved prior. So that's why I think written criteria are probably better than sort of crafting the viewpoint on the fly.
All right, anything else from the board?
Of course, I have it.
Yeah.
So in all the discussions we've had with this and in my review of San Jose and everything else, first of all, the way this is currently worded, we would be going down the most slippery slope ever. to say associated with a specific historical event, cause, nation, tribe, or group. That is so open-ended. So I want to go back to what I originally said, and I think our policy has to say what is yes and leave it at that. Because if we have to get into the place of denying flags, we will be sued. I mean, this is so open-ended. This, I'm sorry, Nick, what we have in front of us does not help us from turning this trust, you know, we don't want to be in this position. We are elected people from the citizenry. Town of Paonia is not a social billboard. We have to, what's on those polls, we have to approve. I do not want to be in the position of having you review a Nazi flag and telling them no, and they sue us. Because there's nothing in here that because I find a Nazi flag not, you know, I find it offensive. There is nothing in here that gives me the ability to say no to that flag. Thank you.
Anything else? Yeah, so,
Well, I suggest that we go back to the language that we had where all national commemorative months, weeks, whatever it is, that's the permissive amount. And otherwise, add the school flag when they have football games. You know, that's, we used to do that when the high school was here. I'm assuming we're going to continue to do that. And that's about it. You know, using the national holiday, use it for lack of a better term, that works. And then somebody has to come to us with insurance, make the application, and they'll have to put them up by themselves because it does not say that we're gonna. Well.
Where are we going with this? Do we need? It sounds like we need to change the language. We don't want to get out of this, so we're gonna change it. Do we just want to ask Nick for recommendations? As far as where we can add what, or do we want to try and make them now, or do we want to punt and go back to the committee?
I don't think we make them now. I mean, that doesn't make sense. It'll take way too much time. Yes.
And I suggest that that's not a real good use of lawyer time. That we go ahead and work it out and then send it to the attorney to review and then go ahead. Giving, not saying that the attorney will spend a lot of time on it, but to give him that task, which is really our task, is not the best use of his time.
I would just suggest too, I mean, we have a banner that hangs over Third and Grand. And it has been used for Mountain Harvest Festival and Cherry Days and all of those. And if we list it to your criteria, none of those things can go up on that banner. So, I mean, local festivals,
Special occasion flags.
well, it could be local festivals, you know, something like that could be added into that group as well. Yeah, Mr. Mark.
Okay, so how about this? We'll take it back to streets. But we'll do a notice meeting so that you guys can all attend. So we'll treat it like a special meeting, but it's just gonna be streets committee. Okay, sound right?
That works.
Yeah, that works.
Okay.
And would you appreciate some draft language?
Yeah, whatever you have, you can make a copy of this and make whatever changes you want, of course. You know, I'm not married to this. This is based on the process that we went through. I appreciate Nick's comments. I think that it aligns a lot with my understanding of the process, like what we needed to get to. And he also said he had an additional comment that he was going to add before. I don't know if we got to that or not. Before we move on.
If I might. The thing in here of allowing people to put up their own flags, that does not meet DMEA's requirement in the ordinance that it be done in a safe manner. So I think that has to go. And I would, if you think that $1 million of insurance would keep, I'm not sure it would. And you might ask Cirsa that question, but it does not meet DMEA's. That woman on the 12-foot ladder did not meet DMEA's required safety requirements. So I think if people put them up, the town has to do it. The town is covered and has proper equipment. So.
Yeah, did you have anything else to add to this?
Thanks, Mayor. My only other comment was on the definition of street flag, and I briefly brought this up before. I was just wondering if it was the board's intent to regulate a flag that somebody hung off a building, let's say on their storefront, and it extended over the sidewalk. This definition of street flag would purport to apply to that scenario as well.
No, the answer is no, we did not intend for that interpretation. We can definitely clarify that. Thank you.
Yeah. It's
Okay.
already how flag, we have ordinance on how flags can be displayed already on private property downtown.
Okay, great.
I make a suggestion that we put in this ordinance that the town, Public Works will do it. But it has to be scheduled, it has to be paid for, and we set a charge. Whatever it is, if it's $2,000, it's $2,000, whatever it has to be.
Okay, so it sounds like Paige and Rick have some good ideas that they'd like to see included. But I want to make sure that we're doing this process properly, because my understanding was we handed it off to Corinne to manage so that we could all do this process. Is it appropriate for us to do what I just described and have a streets meeting where everybody shows up? Is that
As long
okay?
as it's noticed.
Yeah,
We can't make a decision, nor can we have a final draft. We'll have to
Right, yeah.
bring all.
yeah, not a special meeting, right?
Yeah.
Well, no, if we can bring a suggestion,
Yes, especially.
we just can't make the final draft. So the committee makes the final draft and brings it.
Okay, a notice meeting.
Right, right. Okay, all right. All right, let's move on then to new business. First item on the agenda is the public center of Trustee Mark. And Mr. Knutson, you are up on this one.
I'm assuming not everyone had a chance to read the packet, so wanted to read what I wrote. I'm prefacing this because, excuse me, the last meeting, we had a remark made by Trustee Marco that it's insinuated that this board was enjoying raising rates on citizens here in town. He was asked to retract that and he refused. So we voted at the time 3-2 extension at that time. And the vote was kind of confused. It was very quick. I wanted to look back at what we had done and look at the actual things that apply to this. So I wrote a memo, short memo to the board, kind of covering that. So basically, this is a decision document for the board. On August 17, 2022, our board unanimously adopted two very simple guidelines: be kind and be fair. I grant that was not agendized. The previous speaker mentioned that. We were caught up in a very moving presentation by a young person, and we were particularly contentious that night. And so we adopted that also. On resolution 2017-06, it established codes of conduct for elected officials in the town. Section 2 states the Board of Trustees desires to serve as a positive example for civility, respect, and dignity in dealing with another, the town staff, citizens, and business community. Section 2, paragraph C, no member shall berate, intimidate, or belittle others for expressing their opinions or viewpoints, or engage in speech that is inflammatory, defamatory, demeaning, bullying, or threatening. Section 2, paragraph D, no member shall make disparaging remarks about any town employee in a public setting. While criticism of job performance may be a valid topic of discussion, members shall choose a setting for such discussion. During a budget meeting on October 4th, Trustee Marco made a statement claiming the board enjoyed raising utility rates on citizens and refused to walk back that remark. In addition, Trustee Marco has chosen to make remarks that are derogatory to town staff in public meetings. Options for board action. The board may choose the following actions. 1, rescind the censure vote should Trustee Marco agree to retract the statement and abide by the code of conduct. 2, approve the censure vote by asking staff to prepare a resolution of public censure to be adopted at the next regular board meeting. 3, take further action to remove trustee Markle from the board. My analysis, after a private meeting between trustee Peterson and trustee Markle, there may be an opening for option 1. But this avenue entirely depends on the willingness of trustee Markle to both retract and abide by the code. Trustee Markle is unwilling to do both, retract and abide by the code. It's recommended, and that's my recommendation, as one person on the board, that resolution of public censure be drafted and prepared for the next board meeting. Trustee Markle is prevented from voting per section 3 of the Code of Conduct. The board is required by state law and our municipal code to make the charge in writing and provide an opportunity. That's all I have.
So it seems to me that at this moment, it is up to Mr. Markle as to whether he will retract his previous statement and agree to abide by the code. Your report, Mr. Markle.
Okay, so we recognize, I think it would be inappropriate to, make a motion myself. Should it, you think it's appropriate if I just respond?
Yes, all I'm asking is, are you willing to retract?
I'm not, no, I'm not going to retract my
All
comment. I'm willing to make a new comment if I'm allowed the opportunity.
I will allow you to make a new comment.
Thanks. Might take about 10 minutes. So I'm gonna start, also with a preface. I state for the record here that I have no desire to be here. I don't love doing this. I have no political ambitions beyond this term. I don't intend to seek further office after my term is completed. I would very much like the opportunity to chair a meeting. And I know that the mayor, I'd have to be mayor to make sure that that happens, but it's worth it if I don't have to do that. Just so I can demonstrate how a meeting could work if strict procedure were followed and if the chair removed their opinion from discussion. The reason I show up here and I ran in the first place is not because I'm bored or to create a legacy or to find a false sense of power. I'm not here to play games or boost my ego or do favors for my friends. I'm here out of a sense of frustration with the dysfunction, wastefulness, and absence of accountability that I've witnessed firsthand in town affairs. Please. Regarding the census process itself, here are 3 recent examples of professional censure that have happened in Colorado. Just so that we understand the magnitude of what we're talking about, what we're up to. Last year, the Colorado Supreme Court gave a rare public censure to Arapahoe County District Court Judge, Natalie T. Chase. She admitted to using the N-word in front of her court employees, sharing her views on Black Lives Matter movement from the bench and other workplace-related misconduct, manifesting bias or prejudice based on race or ethnicity by her words or actions. She's since been removed from her position. The Aurora, Colorado board attempted to censure Council Member Danielle Jurinsky for comments on a regional radio program where she called Police Chief Vanessa Wilson trash and called her and Deputy Chief Dan Parker to be removed from his post. She retained an attorney and the city ended up paying her legal fees, estimated to be about $16,000. The Denver School Board censured Mayor Tate Anderson recently for substantiated allegations, including that he had flirtatious contact with Denver students on social media. Substantiated allegations, there was a bunch more that weren't substantiated. Substantiated that he also made social media posts that could be perceived as intimidating witnesses in the investigation. Now, regarding the matter at hand, the relevant quote and basis for the proposed censure starts at hour 2:47 on the YouTube recording on October 4th, 2022. I'll repeat what I said. Okay. I said, so in the past 5 years, at every opportunity I've seen this board, this town, raise water rates, actually, I take it back, trash and sewer rates stay the same last time, right? Yeah, thanks, Michelle. So I've seen increases on the order of 20% or so happen many times, sometimes more than one a year. There'll be rate changers, always increases. And I get the sense just by the nature of the discussion, it's exciting for some people to do this, I just want to say it makes me sick Beyond that, it's unsustainable. We can't keep this up at this rate. And then I went on about the unsustainability of ever increasing rates. Now notice what I said, what I stated was my opinion, is my viewpoint. What I said, again, I get the sense just by the nature of the discussion that it's exciting for some people to do this. I just want to say it makes me sick. Beyond that, it's unsustainable. That's the meat of your objection. Is that right?
That's one thing.
Right. It wasn't. Okay. Notice, I didn't name any individuals while stating my viewpoint. Anyone who disagreed with my opinion could simply have said so and left it at that. The cited resolution 2017-06, which, thank you, Christina brought this to my attention. I forgot. If you don't recall, I moved that we enforce this resolution on the meeting we were just talking about, August 17th, 2022, 1 hour, 39 minutes and 16 seconds into that meeting. I made a motion that the mayor enforce this along with Robert's rules. That motion was defeated 5-1. We decided we didn't want to adopt this. This is a discussion where I forget his name, Chelsea's son spoke about this, right? That was my motion. It failed. He stood up, said that, and we made this motion. So had this non-binding resolution even been approved, if you read the wording of it, it's written to protect our rights to express our opinions and our viewpoints. From what you quoted, section 2, paragraph B. No member shall berate, intimidate, or belittle others for expressing their opinions or viewpoints. So after expressing my viewpoint, I was berated. Weird. Here's what Mayor Backern replied. Mr. Markle, you need to control your mouth and what comes out of it. That's angry scolding. That's berating. So, beyond that, notice I did not utter the statement that is quoted to me here. Trustee Markle made a statement claiming the board, quote, enjoyed raising utility rates on citizens. Those aren't my words. They've been twisted, even though they're in quotes, and corrupted. I can only assume to suit the desired outcome for this process. And incidentally, this has also happened in local newspapers, misrepresenting my statements, adding profanity to make them sound controversial and inflammatory, portraying quotes as though I had actually spoken them, with, as far as I have seen, no retraction and only a private apology to me. I want you to note that the claim, quote, Trustee Markle has chosen to make remarks that are derogatory to town staff in public meetings, has no citation and no quote, not even a fabricated or altered one. But Dave, as author of this claim, if you want to move forward with this, I challenge you to produce a record of these derogatory remarks. I want you to send me a link because obviously you can't find a quote. I want a link to a recording where I made a derogatory remark to town staff. If you look at back at what I have said, you'll find that all of my criticisms, even as a citizen, are not directed to town operations, don't exist. There have been 3 instances where my words that I've spoken in meetings have been brought to my attention and questioned to me directly. One, if you recall, was you asking not to use adult language. I haven't done it since then, have I?
You have not.
Thank you. 2 was an advisory water committee meeting where Corinne was not there, and I made the statement that town staff didn't want to work more. And she wrote me an email and asked me not to do that. I made a public apology. And I haven't done it since, have I, Corinne?
No.
Thank you. 3, someone told me that I rudely interrupted Mayor Backern when I was making a speech about the chair interrupting people. And they were upset that I had interrupted her interruption and told her that I had the floor. and then continued to speak about interrupting chairs. I don't think it was a joke, but it was pretty funny after I looked at the tape. I did not apologize for that. And I won't. Now, I will admit, I relentlessly hold people to task. I have very high standards regardless of how well I know someone. I'm not satisfied by promises or excuses. I'm not distracted by pleasantries and charms. This narrative of personal abuse has been perpetuated by the Fourth Estate, where there is a pervasive notion that any public expression or sentiment that public affairs are not being well managed are to be dismissed with hostile retaliation as though they are personal attacks. And again, this false narrative continues with an absolute absence of contract or clarification or statement from the media or the public, even when I am personally named in writing. Now, regarding the final paragraph analysis, as I mentioned above, the board did not adopt the code of conduct. So the claim that I'm prevented from voting per section 3 of it does not hold. This is also the only result for the word censure on Pioneer's Municipal Code. Likewise, the claim that the board is required by state law and our municipal code to make the charge in writing, provide an opportunity of hearing only applies to removal from office. As far as I can find, there's no mention of censure for municipalities in state law. In summary, what's happening here on page 77 now, packet 59 used to be, is an attempt to coerce me into retracting my honest and generalized opinion by substituting your words for mine, distorting my opinion into a personal attack and making demands under threat of censure and threat of removal from the board at the discretion of a single board member. That is not nice, and it is not fair, and I shall not submit to your threats. So you can remove option 1 from the table. That leaves you with options 2 or 3, and I suggest that the board consider a 4th option for action, which is to move on to the next agenda item and stop wasting board staff and public time and funds.
Silence.
Thank you.
All right, first, I would like to ask our attorney to weigh in on Mr. Markle's assertions that the code of conduct does not apply to this board and that there is no language or reference to state law and municipal code about censure for town board members.
Sorry for the delay on that. I was just taking a note, so I remembered the second question. One comment that Trustee Markle made was that there was a motion and it failed 5-1. And I need context on that statement before I can respond.
Would you like to hear a tape, a transcript, or a generalized description of what happened?
Well, I think really what I'm getting at was this resolution 2017-06. It's been signed by the town clerk and the then mayor Charles Stewart. So was it actually adopted by motion of the board? That's what I'm trying to understand.
At the time, it was
In 2017.
in 2017.
Okay. So the board then, and Trustee Markle, your comments were that this current board then again voted on whether this resolution should apply to this current board.
Yes.
And that motion failed.
Yes.
And was that in the last meeting of the board?
No, this was on August 17th, 2022. And the motion, as I recall it, was to direct the mayor to enforce this resolution 2017-06 and Robert's rules. Failed 5-1.
Okay.
I would need to go back and review that piece of tape to see what the context was of that.
It was, this was on the agenda, 2017-06 was on the agenda. It's 1 hour, 39 minutes and 16 seconds in the YouTube video, as I noted.
Okay. All right, well, so first comment on the resolution. So the resolution was formally adopted in 2017 and has not been repealed. Resolutions can only be repealed by subsequent resolution or by ordinance. So it has to be action of similar strength in order to repeal a resolution. A resolution could not be repealed by a subsequent motion. And the way I'm hearing what happened at the August 17th meeting was a motion to enforce the resolution rather than repeal it anyway. And just to address the fact that it was adopted by a subsequent board, because it has not been repealed by subsequent resolution, it is still binding on the current board. The enforcement issue is separate from whether or not the resolution is still in effect and binding on the board. To address the state law issue, there is Trustee Markle is correct that there is no reference to censure in state statutes or the Constitution for that matter, to censure specifically. What is even though there is no reference in the state statutes, though, statutory towns do possess powers that are expressly conferred by statutory grant or exist by necessary implication. So the board does have authority through CRS section 31.4.307 by a majority vote of the board to remove a board member from office. Implied through that, what's implicit in that power is the authority to establish rules of conduct, setting forth rules of conduct for the board and setting forth rules that the board may take, rules regarding action the board may take short of removal. So while the statutes don't specifically reference censure, there is implicit authority in the statutes for action short of removal. So that is how most boards get to the issue of censure. So it is a lawful act. I would say, though, that Trustee Markle's examples of when censure has occurred in the state of Colorado should be noted. It is looked at as an extreme action. So the board should take that into consideration. And even though the statute is silent on the issue of removal, and I'm only addressing this because it is stated in the memo as a potential action that the board could take, that does require a public hearing, and it requires, because the statute is silent, to look at an interpretation from a very old case back in 1899, where the language that that's most understandable to me is that removal requires a finding of malfeasance or serious misconduct. So that's the advice that I can give the board tonight on sort of the legal framework for what's being proposed.
Thank you, Nick. All right. Yes, Mr. Markle.
I want to clarify that I didn't intend to imply that I thought the board did not have the authority to censure. It's just that the method of how that happens is not determined by state statute, nor local resolution, as that is only mentioned in one sentence of 2017 or 2018-06, no, 2017-06, which also I'd like to note, I thought still applied when we had this discussion back then.
Would anyone on the board like to make a motion? Yes, Ms. Smith.
I'd like to make a motion that we completely drop this, reset, and have a true discussion of this resolution that we said we were gonna have at our special meeting.
Do I have a second?
Second that.
I don't know that it's appropriate for you to second something that is specifically about.
Point of order, this is specifically relating to trustee Marco.
Okay. All right, discussion from the board.
I make time for the segue to be able to go into the level of detail you've had in previous meetings. We speak up. I said, I haven't had the time, because of sickness in my family, to be able to go to the level of detail the trustee Marco has gone into. What I tried to do in this instance was to model the kind of behaviors that I expect of others on the board. That is, when I have issues, I meet with them in private and try to work that out. Trustee Marco generously did say yes, he was willing to meet with me one-on-one and discuss this in private. That's appropriate action when there's a personnel issue. Now, if we have the time to go over every single meeting from April when you took office until now, I would not be surprised if we find a number of instances where you have been belittling staff, berating staff. And, it is, and I will admit that you aren't the only one that's engaged in that behavior. All of us have lost in different times. But this event in that budget hearing pushed me over the edge. So I'm going to vote against this motion.
This one.
I would be very surprised if you could find an instance of a personal attack from me. And hey, thank you.
Point of order,
Yeah, Ms.
we get the audience in control, please.
Yes.
Thank you. I gave the 3 examples of times that people have contacted me in person and come to me in person and had a problem with what I said. I make myself extremely available all the time, as much as I can. My number is on our website. Hopefully you guys all know where I live and can come and see me and talk to me about any problems you have with anything that I've done.
Okay.
I would be very surprised if you can find me making fun of somebody,
Mr. Marco,
making a personal attack.
I can remember in a special meeting we had to discuss the street closure for the Mountain Harvest Festival. You specifically called members of our business community narcissists.
Yeah, that's true.
And you also said that if they wanted to run a successful business.
Yep.
Those are derogatory comments, specific derogatory comments toward the business community in this town.
That's okay. Yeah.
That's okay, Mr.
No,
Marco?
I'm saying you're right. But that's not what I'm charged with.
No.
That's
but
not
again, you just
derogatory
said-
comments about.
Mr. Marco, you just
That's
said,
not what I was.
give us 3 comments, 3 times that you have made.
I'm gonna change, and I'm gonna change, move the goal here. Sorry.
Sorry, sir. All right, Mr.
Yeah.
Knudsen?
Well, we're not exhibiting good decorum here, so I would expect the person wanting to be addressed. Thank you for recognizing me. The person who wants to speak should be recognized by the chair. You should try to refrain from going back and forth. So actually, both of your cases.
Agreed.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else? Yes. Mr.
I would like to make a motion that we adjourn the meeting temporarily
Yeah,
so that we can have a 5-minute break.
okay,
And let the motions cool.
all right.
I said.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, 5-minute break. We'll be back at 8:01.
8:04.
Oh, you're right, 8:04. discussion of 2017-06 and later.
And I also said in a reset.
Pardon?
I said in a reset.
And
I said, let's drop this, have a reset and go through 27-16, 26.
right.
Got a formal manner.
Right.
And the formal manner I added.
So further discussion from the board. Yes.
The reason I initially didn't even want this on the agenda is because there is not one of us. We shouldn't, if, you know, we live in a glass house, you shouldn't throw stones. We all have had our moments. Mary, one time you raised your voice and yelled, then shut up to the audience. We just need, frankly, we have too much work to do. We need to be professional. Let's have a reset. Everybody, think about what they're saying. Let's talk about this. It probably needs some updating, and to censure a person, to censure Thomas is so over the top. Let's get past this. This is what makes us, the town of Paonia, the drama that we continue to have has to stop. We have so much to do. And all I ask is we have got to work together. People have to read the packets, read the agendas, come here prepared, read the reports, and we have to have some special meetings to get some really good work done. And this just means let's let it go. And let's just move on to the work that we were elected to do to represent the citizens. Thank you.
Anything else? All right, anything from the public? Yes, Ms. Pass. And remember, I'm going to remind the public, 3 minutes.
Thank you. Michelle Patterson, Second Street. I recognize that I have a conflict of interest here, but I hope you'll consider the content of my statement. First, no one's been publicly promised you're leaving. Thank you. Okay, back at page 59 says Trustee Markle made a statement claiming the board enjoyed raising rates on citizens. Already know that quote was incorrect. And Trustee Knudsen again misquoted Trustee Markle tonight. Trustee Markle has already clarified that comment. So I'll move on to what happened next. After Trustee Markle finished speaking, Trustee Knudsen then immediately misquoted Trustee Markle during the meeting. And rather than serving as an effective moderator, Mayor Backren joined Trustee Knudsen in arguing with Trustee Markle, pushing him to specifically implicate someone related to the statement, and he declined. He declined to do exactly what he is now being accused of. Mayor Backren then made the very disrespectful comment that Trustee Markle should, and I am quoting, control your mouth. Following the statement, the chaotic censure process was rushed forward by the mayor. There's a difference between upholding your rules of decorum and silencing opinions you disagree with. I encourage everyone to reread the resolution, section 2, paragraph C, and consider whether it could really be applied to Trustee Markle's comments on how he feels about raising water rates, or if it could more accurately be applied to Mayor Backren telling a trustee to control your mouth. In the packet, you're presented with an absurd statement of options that is clearly intended to lead the board to a particular conclusion. As a board, you can retract a vote for any reason. For example, because Trustee Markle was misquoted, making this invalid. Or the reason I would suggest, which is that this censure is ridiculous on its face, is a complete waste of board time, and sets a terrible precedent. This is yet another attempt by a minority on this board to bully other board members into silence when they dare question the status quo. I experienced it as a board member, and it's part of why I stepped down. Tammy Meck was also bullied by Mayor Backren and by Trustee Knudsen to the point of stepping down. She worked hard to listen to people in this community, do her due diligence, and bring issues to light. And for that, she was publicly reprimanded and became rightfully disgusted by the board's tactics to the point of leaving. So let me present you with 2 different options for action. 1, rescind the censure vote and acknowledge that board members should be able to speak their mind honestly and openly without fear of retribution. Or 2, uphold the censure vote and show the public that you support silencing your critics and that you think it is more important to shut down criticism of water rates than to actually discuss water rates.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, Ms. Smith.
Tammy Mick, Orchard Avenue. I'm here in support of trustee Markle. Trustee Markle speaks his mind, and that's one of the reasons I voted for him. I would vote for him again. He often says what many of us are thinking. In this case, it is what many of us are thinking. And rather than getting offended and censuring him, you should be asking if this is a perception held by the water users, by the public, and if so, what you can do to ameliorate that perception and improve public trust. Censoring is not the answer. In this case, I believe it undermines public trust and is a waste of time. I urge the board to move on. Thank you, and thank you, Thomas Markle.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, Ms. Watts.
Suzanne Watson. I'd like to say, I don't always agree with trustee Markle, but I find him the most honest and genuine board member I've seen in some time. He's always open to listening to diverse views and really considering what you have to say. He's always been very, very accessible, which is a lot more I can say than most board members. That said, there was a discussion about, there was going to be a work session about this resolution, your code of conduct resolution. You guys made a motion to have a work session. It got hijacked. All of a sudden, rules of procedure was added to that work session. And the work session turned into, it just turned into a discussion of how to limit public comments at meeting through the rules of procedure. And you never got around to the code of conduct. So how dare you? You had a chance. There was, I think trustee Weber was wondering if this code of conduct even applied to you as this new board. You wanted to look at it, to discuss it, to see what really worked here for you. And then you made a work session for it. And then you just started talking about how to silence the public under this other resolution that you didn't vote to actually put on that work session agenda. So how dare you think that you're going to use it like hardcore? I think there's something that's, there's something kind of disgusting about this. I know they looked at me, the board that I was on looked at censuring me, but there was a process that was followed. There were 2 board members that were put on it that weren't related to the issue, that they could look at it and be objective about things. They did a little bit of research. What I'm seeing is like, I'm seeing this charge being brought, this very aggressive charge being brought by one board member, and I believe the mayor has a lot to do with it. I'd also like to say that the mayor has screamed, "Shut up" to the audience before. I think your mayor has been very out of line at times. And I've had times that the board members are not in line, and the chair, the mayor thinks that they're not. There's a point of order that you can do. You can take care of things at the time when the board's deciding if it's appropriate or not. It doesn't have to rise to the level of censure. And aside from that, there was a rumor at Reedy's 3 weeks before Corinne's announcement that she was winning. So it wasn't almost okay. Anyway, it wasn't just at that meeting. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah, so you guys are here to take care of the town's business. And this is not the town's business in terms of, did Mr. Markle step over some line? Mr. Markle, from what I'm hearing, expressed exactly what a whole lot of people in this town think. That there must be people on this board that get some kind of thrill out of raising rates, because it just happens over and over. And, people keep saying, why is it so contentious at these meetings? Well, I'll tell you why it's so contentious at these meetings. When someone tries to express an opinion that certain people don't agree with, they try to throw them out. Silence them, accuse them of weird specific things that don't apply when you get down to looking at it. If you're gonna put your board members on trial, number one, you need a specific charge. You can't say, we don't like things you've said in the past, Mr. Markle. I mean, this is a political stunt from Mr. Be Nice, Be Fair himself. And it is hypocrisy. It is smart. I go.
Yeah, Dave, hi. You're way out of line. This is stupid. You know, these codes of conduct are always like this. They don't apply to the board. They apply to a specific individual with a less than unanimous vote from the board. It's not the town's business. You need to figure out how to keep some water rates down, how to end a moratorium. How to enforce the laws that you have, the laws that you over and over and over let slip away because there's been a little bit of what's the word I want to say? People that don't know what the hell they're doing, working on the town and just not knowing how to enforce your laws. And you embrace that wholeheartedly and so casually. And now because you have these vague recollections that you don't like what somebody says, you're taking up town time in a meeting to accuse somebody of something, and it's just BS.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to address? Yes. Mr. Steele.
I'm Jeff Steels, Onondaga Avenue. So I have 56 signatures here to support option 3. That Mr. Knight has. So.
Thank you, Mr. Steels. Would anyone else like to address the board? Yeah.
Linda McCollum, Second Street. I just want to say that the meetings, I have been observing them on YouTube. The few that I come to, I can't always hear what people are saying. But they have been very contentious, very drawn out. We hear from the same people in the audience every single time. Those are the people, as far as I can tell, who have the patience to come in here and sit for a meeting for 3 hours when nothing gets accomplished. Or you redo every single ordinance or law that's ever happened. Oh, we didn't come up with this, so therefore it doesn't apply to us. We have to go through a whole new process and come up with a whole new ordinance. You have some very real problems in this town, some very real problems. And they have to do with the fact that you don't have the funds to accomplish what you need to accomplish. And you know that. You know that the budget and the audit has been out there in the public packet and it's been directed to you. You know, you've had these discussions. You know that there is no money. You know that. And you're perpetrating the whole idea that somehow it's just waste and corruption, which seems to be an American problem right now. Everything is waste and corruption, but it's not. It's not. The prices are going up, the costs are going up, the supplies are not available, the infrastructure is broken, and it's going to take money. And you, instead of being a bomb thrower about it, you need to work this out. And by the way, if be nice and be fair is good enough rules for elementary school, I don't know why it should not apply to adults.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else? Yes.
Chris Kendall, Minnesota Creek Road. I have been to all these meetings that they've talked about. I give kudos to Michelle and Tammy and Bill Bruner and Suzanne and everybody that's spoken, because all these things have happened. And there's only about a half a dozen of us that come. This room is twice filled tonight with people that don't even come and they won't even sit through a meeting. They'll come and they listen to what they want to hear and they walk out. And I have heard Mary, I've heard everybody throw fits, call names, cuss, and try to tell us we can't speak. When all we're trying to do is help. And I agree that Thomas is, sometimes I don't agree with me, but he's willing to listen to our views and he stands behind what he says, which some people don't.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yeah.
Christina, and Price Road. Be nice, be kind, be nice, be fair, great, but there's 1,500 people in town, plus the outskirts, water districts. There's thousands of people, and not everybody has the same view. And why should y'all have the same view? But everybody should be able to express everything that needs to be expressed. Because you will not get anywhere. You will go in circles if everybody just has to conform and say the same thing and be just like whatever certain people feel they have to be. That's not the way life works. And you will never get to the bottom of things. Things have to be questioned and addressed. There's been a lot that has gone on in this town. I've gone to every meeting since that water debacle. It was that water debacle under Ken Knight it wasn't a perfect storm. There was a lot of mismanagement going on and on and on and on from there. The stories and the thread through. A lot of people don't have that thread through. But not everybody should have the same exact opinion. That gets us nowhere. And everybody needs to be able to speak and be heard, period. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right. Yes. It is.
I read 1899, like State Road. My mother taught me, if you can't say anything nice, don't say anything about someone. No, I can't think of anything nice to say about Mr. Merkel. So let me address the board. There's people out here who have waded through the videotapes, as I have, who read the newspapers, who sometimes come to meetings. And this isn't a trial. Mr. Knudsen put forward a motion with some options. This isn't a trial. Having detailed instance is not something for tonight. But it would not be hard for a few people in this town to sit down and catalog the videotapes, the transcripts, the newspaper articles that show the insults, the anger, the absolute disrespect from Mr. Merkel towards people in the community, towards the staff, and towards all of you. It's on there, it's on the tape, no big deal about it. We can't, you know, we could go on all night citing individual times that business people, individuals, board members, staff have been insulted. And because you didn't vote and say aye to a code of conduct, does it mean you aren't responsible for your actions? You aren't responsible for what you say? We're human beings. Let's learn how to work together. It's been said before, yes, learn to work as a team. When you got a team player that's always putting up an obstruction, always getting in the way, it's pretty hard to get through. Along with Mr. Skeels, I suggest and request that you use option number 3.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Yeah. Hey.
Yes, Ms. Patterson.
Tree person, Bill Grant. Thank you, Mr. Marco. Thank you, Miss Marco. Thank you, Tammy. Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Madam. Speaking of, and not wasting time, what you're doing professionally. You're professional time wasters, and that's money, our money being wasted. And none of the people here that support you and against him have come up with any specific, valid reason
to censor him. And I suggest you drop it.
Thank you. Yeah, Scott.
Susie Calvis, Harding Road. I've only spoken to Thomas Markle twice this year. Both times, he used intimidation tactics. He spoke over me. He didn't listen. He mansplained. Look it up.
Hey, quiet.
And he was offensive. He did not want to see my side. He did not try to get to know me. He did not welcome or have patience with what I was presenting. He was rude and offensive. He made assumptions about me and my character. He made assumptions about the nonprofit that I work for. And frankly, the last two big wins that we've had in this town, Harvest Festival and the banners going up, he voted against. And he did not come prepared to the initial meeting, I think in May, for our initial street closure. And decided, I'm going to make a motion to deny this and acknowledge that he wasn't prepared. I'm really tired of this. I've been watching your budgeting session. I watched 4 hours of it. No, I don't have time to come all the time, but people are aware. We are watching. And we're concerned. We want progress in this community. We want to be good neighbors, but we also don't want to see people who maybe are not qualified to be on this board.
Thank you, Ms. Callis. Hey, quiet. Anyone else? All right, seeing no further comment, we have a motion on the table to drop this, have a reset, and have a discussion of 2017-06 at a further meeting. Anything else from the board? All right, all in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Hey.
All right. Is there another motion you'd like to make? Yes.
I've heard a lot from the public tonight. That has denigrated both myself and trustee Markle. I do appreciate the difference of opinions. If I have a regret, it's a regret for not standing up for Tammy in that SSG. That's my biggest regret on the board. I do feel that some kind of action by this board is necessary to try and calm us both down. All of us down. I do agree with the fact that we need to start working together. And figuring out a way where we can move the town forward. I agree with that. I'm still very adamant, just, well, I can't address a trustee directly, can I? So,
I must. Nothing.
what did I miss? Censure is very strong. I did listen to that about the examples we had of censure in the past. And so I can see that emotion like that is very, very severe. But I still want to find some motion to call out unproductive or difficult behavior that keeps the board from moving forward. And I've seen that a lot, and I'm talking about that individually. I can't think of a motion right now.
Okay, does anyone want to make a motion? Yes.
I don't think we need a motion necessarily, but if I suggest there's a point of order. If you have an objection to something that's being said, proper process, as I understand it, is to raise a point of order.
Okay.
Thank you.
Talk to me. Thank you. All right. If there's nothing else on this subject, I'd suggest we move on to the general contract engineering request. All right. So we have 4 in front of us. Those hard slug reads. I would entertain a motion to approve one of these firms, and then we can open it for discussion, or we can just do a discussion as to pros and cons, and then bring forth a motion. So you want to go ahead and start the discussion?
Yes, I read all 4 of them. 2 of them, we can't possibly make a decision because in my packet, I don't see any fees associated. And so without any fees, I can't do a fair comparison. So with that in mind, I don't know if we want to ask for fees from SGM. And go ahead, sorry.
So of course, through our review, we noted the same thing, that fees were not included. This was more of a request for qualifications. And so we did reach out and receive from both the other firms, their fee schedules and have compiled those onto a spreadsheet, but it wasn't completed until today. With getting that information. So we did not add that to the packet along with all the other things that were being changed. I would suggest 2 possible actions from the board. One could be based on the qualifications that are included, that you choose firms that you might want to interview based on what they can provide to the town. Or if you want to see the fees as well prior to doing that, we can provide that and continue this on to the next agenda.
Yes.
And Thomas raises, I just have one thing to say, and SGM doesn't have the requisite engineering, street engineering in their proposal, which is one of the things we definitely need. So I personally have kind of discounted SGM. Because they did not talk about any of that. There was maybe a PE that had done some engineering street work, but all of it was water. They're great on water, but we need a broader, stable.
Yeah.
Yep, there was nothing on streets.
And that's one of the things I highlighted on streets. Okay, just a mark.
Yeah, we have, they're not super helpful, but there are fee proposals for Westwater on page 73. And, or I guess a description of a proposal, and then their actual fees on page 89, I think. No, I'm sorry, 84. And then SGM has a fee structure on page 110, so we can kind of get an idea about, comparing the, like, we don't know what the projects are gonna cost, but we can get an idea of who's more expensive.
Sorry. The one thing with SGM, I have no way of knowing the people that they had in their lists. I have no way of knowing what they charge because there was no crosswalk between their their title and the titles put in the fee schedule. So again, a big demerit on that. Again, I can't do a comparison.
Okay, anything else from other members of the board? Yeah, Mr. Still.
I too was really troubled with no fee schedules. That seems to me to be one of the biggest selling points for your firm. And because we have such a limited budget, it's one of the most cogent concerns that we have. And I suggest that if we have the spreadsheet, we go ahead and make a decision. Is there any way we could just email that spreadsheet to us and we could look it over? No? That would be the, take 5 minutes and look it over and go from
But
there.
it still needs to be made public.
Well, it can be put on the website.
Well, that doesn't mean the people in this room get to see that.
Can we put it on the screen?
I just want to make a correction. It was JDS that only had water, not SGM.
That's.
Sorry.
Okay, let's go ahead.
Yeah, SGM.
That was so sorry. Yeah, I was my concern with JDS as well.
Sorry.
Agreed. It's like SGM.
I know, you're right.
Is there a way we can put that up on the screen?
Yes.
Boy, I am not comfortable making this big a decision, looking at a spreadsheet on a screen. And this has to be postponed till we can get all the information, in my opinion. Again, with SGM, I can't tell you, I just know they're more expensive, but I don't know by what, and that spreadsheet isn't gonna help me on that.
Yeah.
There were a couple things I saw in some of these proposals that were really attractive. One of the firms came in with a grant writer that was on. Really,
And that was which one?
that was KLG.
Right.
I also saw, I was looking at how close people worked here, and one firm was in Montrose. That's again, KLJ. There were two firms that actually had cultural sensitivity. I think a lot about, we are on stolen land right now, but cultural sensitivity as we do our excavations, and we do our work to archaeological resources, those types of things. So two of the firms actually cited that they had that. I agree that JDS is really deep in the water end, but it's been like pulling teeth trying to get stuff from JDS as we've gone through this water situation. So I've kind of discounted them in my analysis. One of the things I'm concerned about using fees as especially with engineering firms or consulting firms or law firms. People who really know what they're doing can do something in about an hour and a half, and that's your fee. And someone that's trying to learn it can take 5 to 10 hours. So a fee structure can't always tell you whether you're saving the town money. Sometimes you pay what you get what you pay for, and the higher dollar firms tend to have such deep expertise that the charge to the town is actually lower in the long run because it takes them less time to do the job. So that's all I have.
Okay. Any other comments from the board? Yeah.
I noticed the grant writer too, and the grant writer for KLJ, they have a specific grant writer, but if I can remember correctly, she's only done federal grants. She wasn't familiar at all with Colorado grants.
The other thing,
And SGM, they gave a long list of the grants that they have got for other towns. So that doesn't discount KLJ for me, but that person does not come with the Colorado experience we need necessarily. And I just want to add that I agree that the fee is not the main thing, but the fact that we can't compare fees at this outset to make such an important decision is a real handicap.
I'm pretty sure that it was SGM, and if I'm wrong, somebody correct me. But I'm pretty sure it was SGM that their asset inventory that told us that the 1 million gallon plant was in good shape and operational in fall of last year, and then we found out that wasn't true. Anybody else remember who that was?
It was SGM.
Was it?
They did that asset inventory. So is that your
I
question?
think that, yeah, I think it was the firm that did the asset inventory. I don't remember who
Yes.
that was.
Yes.
Personally, it was JDS or SGM, or somebody else, but I'm not comfortable using a firm that would have missed something like that.
have anything to add, Mr. Valentine?
No.
Okay, well, I noticed that all of the firms, well, KLJ Apps has a grant writer, all of them say that they will help us get loans, and Westwater will help with grant writing loan applications. And what was the other one? And some of them will help with also managing the loans afterwards, which would be a big help because the afterwards, the working on the loans, keeping up the reports and all of that stuff is incredibly time consuming. And if they could take some of that burden, it would be really helpful. And we can write that into the grant as well. That can be covered by the grant, so that would be really helpful. One thing I did like about KLJ is they had this whole public engagement thing that went along with it. What I liked about SGM is they did a whole panoply of things. They covered everything and had a lot of experience. The other thing that I liked is they did some housing stuff. which I thought was really beneficial that nobody else did.
I didn't hear that last comment.
The one thing I like about SDM is they've done some housing stuff too, which I think would be very beneficial. But again, yeah, we could look at these. I really don't like putting this off for another 2 weeks, but if we need to, we need to. Because we can't do our 5-year plan until we get our engineer. Yes.
One thing about Westwater Engineering is they were the engineer that did the water survey for us some time ago, but they're quite familiar with our system and the water system for one. And I believe that Westwater Engineering, and I can't swear to this, but they were the engineers for the sewer.
I think, yeah.
Say that.
Yeah. Well, then,
Six local projects in Paonia for Westwater.
yes.
A suggestion to the board, if they are going to put it on, it sounds like there were some specific questions that some of the board members had arise out of the receipt of this. And what we can do, typically when you do a request, you can do an addendum if you make any changes when you're advertising. But now that the advertisement period is closed, what we can do is a follow-up request with any additional questions. So if there was a specific question or questions that board members had, we can set a date, say Monday, since everyone's reviewed, to submit the questions, and I can tabulate all the questions into one document, provide it to all 4 engineering firms and get the responses to that to provide along with the fee schedule at the next meeting.
Okay, well, what questions would the board propose? Yes.
I suggest that we get a fee schedule from all of them,
Yes.
not that it's the thing that we're gonna pick.
Right.
But we should have an even playing field.
We have it from 1.
No, we haven't.
From 2.
Yeah.
We have it already from 2, but
Right.
I would have a question for SGM to give us a crosswalk of all the people they said would be assigned to Paonia. Where are they in their fee schedule?
Right, so what I would request from the board is that if you emailed your questions, then I will take
Okay.
all the board members' questions and put them in one document and send them to all 4.
You want that by Monday?
If possible,
Okay.
by end of Monday, so we can send it Tuesday.
All right, then we'll go ahead and continue this to the next board meeting. Pardon? Yeah.
One thing that was frustrating about this process is, we as board members are added, I don't have the expertise in engineering. And I've been tasked as a board member to read almost 175 pages of proposals that are very detailed about engineering, yet I don't have an analysis from people that know this stuff. That's the thing that kind of scares me about trying to make this decision as a layperson. Is there someone neutral that is an engineer that can look through these proposals and make a recommendation and analyze them? I would feel a lot more.
And I think that's the loss of our current committee system, because when Public Works Committee was together, they could look at a broader range of stuff, and they would look at this stuff and they would read it and then come back with a recommendation. So, yeah.
They all gave us references. If we want to do references, I am not volunteering. But I mean, that doesn't answer your question, but if you have any, I don't know. I mean, it's one way to do a little follow-up.
Yeah. I don't know. Yes.
I just wanted to add 2 things. First, I just wanted to remind the board that a general contract engineer does not mean that this is the engineering firm that the board is required to use for all of your projects. The general contract engineer is the engineering firm that has a general or specific knowledge of all the areas that we would be using an engineer, so that we could get general information from them, potentially help get them to do smaller projects or information gathering. And on larger projects, we can still put out an RFP as a process that they could provide what that cost would be to the town. The second thing is that we do have a few local engineers that are were not specifically qualified in all of those aspects to put in for this, but they are engineers, and I would be happy to reach out to them and ask them if they would be willing to review the proposals and see if they have any feedback at the board.
Board like that, Mr. Markle?
We have a Jeff on Zoom. Is that Jeff Hunter? We can't tell.
I think Lucy was on.
Yeah, I remember I saw Lucy. Yeah, I was saying that we might be able to see if they'd be up for it right now, but it might not be him.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay. Well, like that, does the board agree that Corinne should reach out to local engineers? Yeah.
Oh, they should be paid for their service for our hourly rate.
I was going to ask if they were willing to volunteer that, but if not, yeah. It's what the board wants.
Professional services, I think.
Okay.
is stationary paid for that.
Yeah.
We'll have to dig it out of the budget somewhere.
Mr. Markle?
Yeah, I think
It's going to see the purchasing policy.
if we could, just leave it up to them. This might be an opportunity for a citizen or a neighbor to help us out. And if they want to do it for free, let them, please.
If you want to charge a fee, I think it's only professional.
Yeah, that's only reasonable, but
Okay, so we have a general consensus to have her reach out.
Okay, so do we have a schedule going forward? Are we gonna put this back on the?
Yeah, it'll be on the next
weeks
agenda.
After we do our questions, so you're gonna ask them to kind of do it soon.
Yes.
And what are we asking them to tell us? I almost feel like we have to give them a couple
Maybe
bits
rank
of
them.
criteria
Yeah,
that
maybe just rank them.
give us our thoughts.
Yeah.
Give us their thoughts.
Yeah.
My thought is, as community members, they would have an idea of what the town needs when it comes to water engineering, sewer engineering, streets infrastructure engineering, and how things. How they measure it.
Okay. All right, then let's move on then to town clerk job description and hiring plan. Some odd pages down.
219,
Thank you.
maybe.
Yeah, it's very good. All that. All right. So we have a plan here.
Well, no, actually, this this is just the job description. And hang on a second.
Yeah, let's
Let me catch up to myself a moment. We need to talk about
there's
job description, the proposed salary range. I have some other things. I had some questions that we should talk about that didn't make it in the packet. And Corinne had answered some of those, so I want to share those. And then advertising outlets to put this on, and then the next thing would be a plan for again, nothing can be public. Applications are absolutely not public, but we then decide do we want to just have the trustees be the review committee? That's kind of maybe after we get all this decided. Because it'll take a little bit to get it posted. And I don't think there is schedule. I think I put in a schedule.
No, I don't think we have a schedule.
So maybe, I don't know, the clerk does it have to be, we could have a closing date. But I'm sorry, I put the card.
Yeah, let's go through the job description. Let's get the questions answered. Let's discuss the things that need to be discussed. So what are your questions, Paige?
The first thing is if you would look on the second, sorry, I have lost my place, second page of the job description. And Corinne had 2 comments about town trustee support. And Corinne's viewpoint was the first 2 bullets really are attributable to work that the administrator would do.
Okay.
And I have no problem with that.
So we're going to take those off.
If everybody's amenable.
Yeah. That's Mr.
The
Skelton.
reason that was is because for so many years, we didn't have a town administrator. And the clerk took both roles no matter what. So that's the reason. And I'm fine with taking it off. As a matter of fact, it'd be good.
Yeah, and to be honest, I probably saw that an example of a clerk position that John and I were looking at.
One of the things about that clerk position, because they are custodian of the records, that I believe means minutes of the meeting.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
that's kind of the thing there. And I know that we've gone for so long combining those two functions. I think it would be really good to not combine those functions.
Right. I think we've already decided that. Okay, Mr. Mark.
Yeah, the second one, are specific to the town trustee support. Paragraph, second item. Reviews proposed ordinances and regulations plans and technical reports related to departmental activities for content, accuracy and feasibility. I kind of feel like the ordinance review is the responsibility of the clerk. I think by statute, I think that they have to do they're the
Keeper of the ordinance.
Yes, so I kind of feel like that part of it should be retained.
Okay.
Lorenz, can you speak to that? Is the clerk responsible for preparing the ordinance or just keeping the ordinance?
The clerk is responsible for keeping the ordinance and, but I would think that for any review of an ordinance that was proposed changes or language and thing like that, that would be at the administrator level.
So it seems like, yeah, the clerk keeps the ordinance, the county administrator.
Oh, so,
proposes.
yeah. Okay, I see prepares ordinance in the in the previous section. Okay, got it. Thanks.
So you want the first two bullets completely gone?
Yeah, I think so.
Board agrees.
Now, move that we remove the first two bullet points from town trustee support.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
I,
Opposed? All right, moving on. What's your next one?
Well, I'm going to Corinne's comments and then I want us to go back, and make sure we look at the salary range and the minimum qualifications. So on the last page of the job description, Corinne made it clear that if somebody comes in and they have not obtained that municipal clerk certification, the way it's set up, it would take at least, it would take 4 years to do it. And I had said 3. What's the other one? Oh, you asked about the Colorado driver's license. And I remember there was a time you had to go to the fairgrounds for a meeting. So.
within 3 days of getting a job in Colorado, you get your driver's license.
Right. Oh, is it a rule?
Yep.
It's a rule. Okay, then
Like
that's.
if you reside in the state of Colorado, you have to have it.
Within 3 business days of getting a job, you have to get your Colorado driver's license.
So ID.
For ID, is
Yeah, I think it's like state ID.
Well, if you don't have to, if you have a driver's license, you have to change it at that point.
Right.
But it can be an ID. You're right. You're right. I misspoke.
But I had several months to get a Colorado. Well. 3 days?
3 business days.
Oh, good grief, I didn't do that.
Be glad the police chief didn't stop you.
Yeah. So how would you like that to be? Do we want them to have, they need to have a valid driver's license.
I think so, yeah.
I mean, is that,
Then
Can I
the deal is they have to transfer.
should I just say possession of a valid driver's license? Because if they apply, they have 3 days to go get one.
Well, if they get the job.
Well.
And I know that's a bitter experience.
Yeah.
I got solved.
Oh, anyway. So, and the last was that there's actually 10 paid holidays, not 9.
Yeah.
So. Minimum qualifications. Wait a minute, go to the next, go to the bottom of the page ahead. Because there are preferred qualifications.
Okay,
At the bottom of that page.
so what would be a relevant field?
experience as a town clerk.
Well, no, a bachelor's degree in a relative field.
Public administration,
It could be,
Poli sci,
public administration is really the
well, that's,
ideal.
we require that of the administrator.
Masters, right?
And no, we do not require masters. Bachelors. But, you know, the pay range. So I don't know, I just wasn't as wedded to the clerk having to have quite that level of degree, but again, that's why we're talking about it.
yeah,
Well, one of the things about a municipal clerk is it's a very technical position.
yeah, you have to be very detail oriented, yeah. So it seems like anything with data management, anything like that would be a relevant field. So. I don't know. Why don't you say bachelor's degree? And then we can look at what the bachelor's degree is in.
Yeah, I mean. It's kind of just, yeah, that's fine,
And the bachelor's degree,
period.
yeah.
Mhm.
It's like the irrelevant field that works really well. Because a bachelor's degree in interpretive dance does not. Much.
Oh, you have a point, Rick. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry.
Now, if we're asking for relevant, or if we're asking for preferred qualification, shouldn't we say something like at least 2 years as a deputy clerk or serving in a clerk capacity, something that is directly the job? We'd really like to see that. That would be preferred. So if someone came down the
Wait.
pipe and they had served somewhere else.
Minimum, right? Under minimum, it says 3 or more years of progressively responsible office management experience, preferably with local government.
It's not the same. I'm talking about deputy clerk or clerk, actually preferred experience
Okay.
is someone who has served as a clerk or who served as a deputy clerk.
But if
Then we have very little training. If you're saying preferred experience, why not say that?
But we have municipal clerk certification. It's like can't get certification if you're not acting as a municipal clerk.
The only thing I'm asking is that we look at relevant job experience and list that down as preferred. Get a candidate
Okay.
that way, it bumps them up to the top of the list.
Mr. Mark.
There are such things also as associate's degrees in public administration. I think we had that. Associates or bachelors.
A bachelor's or an AA degree.
I'm not sure what the designation, I guess.
I would suggest that be minimum. I don't know.
Yeah.
No, I have to say, I'm not keen on the associate's degree and surrogate for the bachelor's. Having one myself. Yeah.
Fair enough.
It's where you go to figure out what you want to do with your life.
Yeah. Figure out what you want to take for your bachelor's.
So, we're at bachelor's degree in a relevant field. Yeah, Dave is proposing that, and we have municipal clerk certification, which does not necessarily mean, well, hang on, let's back up. If you have municipal clerk certification, have you been a municipal clerk? Don't you have to be
Yes,
practicing?
yeah.
You have to be practicing. So that is our, it looks to me like our preferred qualification is that you have been a municipal clerk. Because if you have the certification, that means you've been a clerk.
We probably won't get that.
Right, but that, you were saying you would like to prefer to be a municipal clerk or a deputy clerk.
Deputy clerk or working in a clerk's office for at least 2 years.
So is it a given if you have municipal clerk certification, you've been working in a clerk office for a number of years? And I'm only asking because I don't know.
To obtain your municipal clerk certification, you have to complete a minimum of so many hours of training along with on-the-job experience. So if they're coming in with that certification, which I can tell you from going to institute, a significant amount of clerks don't have that. They're working toward getting it. That means they've been in the field for a minimum of 2 years, and probably 4. If they have, if they did it through Institute, because to do it through Institute, it requires 4 years. My suggestion would be that it be someone that has either been in a position of deputy clerk or worked in a municipal clerk office. My time as deputy clerk, I never could have done clerk work if I had not been the deputy clerk.
So do you think that would be more of a minimum qualification or preferred to have been deputy clerk? Can I put this in front of you? Because I'm getting confused. Yep.
I suggest that if somebody hasn't been a deputy clerk for us to hire them as a clerk, it's counterproductive. I can see where some, because if they haven't been a deputy clerk, they're basically coming in raw. And we're training them. And that's another thing. If we're getting somebody that does not have a certification, we should get a contract because we're sending them to school. It's not terribly expensive, but it is an expense. And the other thing is that if somebody's certified, that we ought to look at the salary range for them in that light.
Well, that's why there's a salary range and I want you all to look at it.
I see the salary range, it's kind of low for what we're looking for.
Yay.
I know it.
Mayor, if I may, to answer the question, my suggestion would be under preferred qualification would be having been a clerk previous, and a minimum qualification would be deputy.
Okay, so minimum is certification like it says now.
Minimum would be a deputy clerk. Preferred would be previous town clerk experience,
And
municipal clerk experience.
what about certification? Is that asking too much?
For preferred,
Preferred
no. That's your preferred, it's not required.
and previous experience. Okay, thank you. And then minimum,
Minimum would be having held a deputy clerk position.
thank you. And none of this is lost on me. I have to tell you, none of this is lost on me.
Thank you.
Okay. So are you all right with the rest of the minimum qualifications, which is high school diploma or equivalent is required? Ability to obtain certification, years, 3 or more years of progressively. So we're saying minimum qualification deputy clerk. So I would just want to make sure 3 or more years of progressively responsible office management experience, preferable if that's now moved. Or is it still helpful?
No, I think.
Okay, with local government, okay. Okay, yeah. I think, you guys look, you still thinking?
No, I think.
Oh, okay, good. So salary range. Let me just tell you the questions I had, and let me tell you the question that Corinne answered them. So the first question is the salary range. Draft annual salary range included is, this is commensurate hourly rate of $27 to $35 per hour. Is this acceptable? And Corinne wrote, this is accurate based on the current salary ranges set by the board through the establishment of the administrator's salary.
So when we did the salary survey, what did the salary survey say for clerks?
I don't have.
Yes.
Okay, so if you take the average of all the communities, it's 52,917 through 70,405.
if you use the same philosophy or same way that you figured out the administrator, that would be 62,520 to 79,107.
Yeah.
This splits the difference between the two. I want to make sure we're not overlapping administrator and clerk, because those are two different jobs in my mind, so let's just.
What is supported for the other? Yeah, so what do you want to split the difference? What was that?
No, it's just, this salary range is just.
Oh, you like, it's just
One
right.
to 70, yeah.
We currently propose 56 to 70.
Yeah, Mr. Markle?
That's a difference of 38% in that range. Do we, can we narrow that at all?
Yeah, Mr. Salter?
Well, I suggest that if we get somebody that's got 10 years of clerk experience, they're certified, and they've been a comparable type town as us, that the higher range would be very adequate, and we're liable to get somebody that's very good and we'll keep them. And that's really, retention is the biggest thing, because as we're about to find out, we're gonna be going through a period where we're gonna be all floundering. And it's gonna suck.
Yeah, Mr. Markle?
Yeah, I don't mean necessarily lower the top end, could raise the bottom or bring both. I don't really care. I just think that the range, and if we think that the range of the qualifications and experience of people that are gonna be coming in is gonna be reflective of that broad of the spectrum of folks, that's fine. I guess I don't know what to expect. It seems kind of broad.
Let me just give everybody the administrator range. It's for 85 to 105.
I think this range is good. It gives us a lot of latitude, yes.
Also, if you go with the, so that comes out, bottom comes out to $27 an hour. If you go with the proposed scale that's in the budget, that would be a department head, that would be $35 an hour.
You know, it's 72.
Yeah.
Oh,
And did the math for me.
yeah.
All right, so what's the next?
Next one was outlets, and I meant to put in DCI in this. So we, when we met as the committee earlier, CML job board, Colorado Municipal Clerks Association job board, High Country Shopper, DCI, maybe the Merchant Herald. I don't know. Yeah, I'm not calling him.
I don't know what the publication date is.
Yeah, being in
Yeah, I don't know.
month.
It's a monthly though.
Yeah.
And the other thing is what about the Montrose?
Oh, that was on the list too. Corinne suggested Montrose Daily Press, or if not, the Grand Junction Sentinel, local but branched out a bit. So either, I mean, DCI, I think for sure.
Yeah.
The other two, I have no idea what it costs.
Yeah.
I've not understood that. Oh, yeah.
Let me tell you from experience, because we learned this the hard way, that you need to be very clear if you advertise in Montrose or Grand Junction, because they do daily newspapers. And you'll want to specify that it's weekly. If you specify that the rates are not that much different than TCI.
Okay. Thank you.
We learned that the hard way. And they will try and talk you into doing things.
Yes, of course. Okay. Oh,
May I suggest that we hit the Durango paper and then also Pueblo? Because that gets a wide circulation. And it covers the entire third CD actually.
I was going to say, are we going to do the High Country Shopper? So I was thinking, a Grand Junction also has a High Country Shopper kind of
The
thing,
nickel.
the nickel, yeah,
50 nickel.
50 nickel
And where's that?
in Grand Junction. They've got a wide circulation area.
And so you would like, I'm sorry, I'm not caught up with my note taking. Durango, Durango, what was the other one? And do they, obviously, we each have newspapers.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I can-
It's Durango, Herald, and Pueblo is. Oh, I'm drawing a blank.
The Cortez has a newspaper as well.
All right, so you're good with those lists?
Yeah.
Application timeline, quickly, Corinne comes back. Because if the house sells. Well, she may be gone.
So that timeline, we don't have that timeline. So what is
I
it?
don't have a timeline.
Oh,
It was question mark.
so
because I
as soon as
wanted
you can
this-
get it put together, get it out there. So
Can we get it in before the last meeting of this month? Get a preliminary. Yes,
So, yeah,
at least.
If you're okay, I still have the credit card number. I can just do what I did for the administrator and just, if you guys don't mind, maybe John and I can do it together. But I'm happy to start working on it next week and get it. I need to make sure it's posted on our webpage because we are not paying for this in the newspaper. Right, we'll just do a little blurb. It's safe to see this and I'll look at some other blurbs in the DCI. Okay. Yeah, oh yeah, Clerks Association has everything, don't they?
oh,
And do you have to be a member of the Clerks Association to put something in their job board?
Yes.
Are you a member?
Yes.
If I send it to you, we do it, thank you.
Yes, we also have a columns account, which is the DCI.
Oh.
And so if you send what you want it, I can get it in there.
Okay. Great,
Their deadlines are Friday at 1 o'clock.
okay. So it will not be tomorrow.
I will not leave the office.
so the closing date would be,
So if we can start, and remember, most of these are weekly papers.
right,
So if stuff starts getting advertised week of the 17th, and it'll take a little to get it all going. November 18th, November 21st.
I would say the 18th.
You want to have closing?
Yeah, I like 15 December.
Okay, and then. Do you want to ask them to submit the applications to the town of Paonia? To that, how does that work? Can they submit them to the town of Paonia?
Yeah.
I mean, just open email? Or is there a better email?
No, they can submit them to Paonia, Town of Paonia, or
Okay,
direct.
and do we want them to submit a resume? Or fill out the town application?
Both. I mean, it's,
Sorry, what,
yeah, starts tomorrow.
yeah. I don't know who's applied for a job recently. But making somebody take the information from the resume and type it into an application and then also use the resume. Is just mean and can turn people away.
I don't know what's on the town application, that's the thing.
Yeah, that's
How we get
great.
this town
Yeah, so,
application.
I would, if I could recommend that we just accept resumes, unless the town application is simply just like one box. Just having people type in categories about what might already be categorized is.
Okay, and in truth, this, at this level, they should have a resume. Yeah.
When you're recruiting, if all you look at resumes, you end up getting people that write good resumes, not necessarily that you're comparing apples and apples. And that's the one thing an application does. An application forces you through the process of when did you work, which dates, where. So now you see a job history and we can actually do it better than candidates if we require them to do. So I'd be careful about just asking for resumes. It's too easy.
Okay, well, yeah, I'm not saying fair. But one or the other.
Well,
On some writing skills, see the cover letter, you have a resume, everything.
Letter or resume ready. You're looking for.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, and a job application, if you know your dates, I mean, it's not that hard.
the town application is pretty thorough. Because I had one applicant fill it out. And which may be, and the good thing about the town application is it also includes permission to do a criminal background check.
Oh, yeah.
Which we want that, and right now we have to talk about administrators for that. So.
But we have a statement about false statements.
Oh, yeah.
False statement or
So-
resume doesn't.
So you would like it to be a cover letter, resume, and fill out the application, which they cannot do electronically. They have to download it and type it in. So it all come in on paper.
I'll get it transferred over time prior to that, so it can be
Oh,
filled out online.
Okay, so they could submit everything like that. Yeah, okay. All right, and so the other question was, well, we've answered the criminal history background check, and if they do the application, that will happen automatically because it's part. So the other thing is the statute says that if someone, okay, let me back up. We have to decide if any of the reasons that time is it? I can tell. So if we want to make it so that somebody has to live in town as a qualification for the job, we have to say that in the application. We have not. And let me just tell you what the statute talks about. An officer, which is any of us, or a clerk, even the administrator, I think in there, can be removed immediately if they move out of town. But in this case, we've not required people to live in town. And let me just tell you what CML said. Removal. In municipalities where clerks are appointed, the appointing authority also has a power of removal. CRS 314307 provides that any town officer elected may be removed from office by a majority vote of all members of the Board of Trustees. Written charges and hearings are required unless the officer has moved out of town and non-residence is specifically stated as grounds for removal. So in this case, we have not said there that non-residence is grounds for removal for anyone. So I just want to make sure that you know the statute kind of alludes to residency, but we have not done that for anyone. And we should talk about that a little bit because anyway, yeah, just want to bring it up.
I suggest that is mostly for people that are, say, our police, which I know we're in violation of that. But the people that have to respond quickly. I don't see that the town clerk and the administrator are here on an emergency basis. And that having them living in town would help us at all. There is cheaper options to jail to live. I would hope that they live in town, mostly because they're part of the community. And that's really important too. But to require that as the most expensive community to live in is kind of out of range, I think.
Sure, Michael. So the bottom end of the salary range we're talking about here was 51,688.
No,
56. Yeah,
all right,
56, yeah.
160.
Right, yeah, so 56 monthly is $4,600, leaving a 33% rent availability of $1,554. So I don't think it's unreasonable to ask somebody to live here as a clerk at the bottom of this salary range. I think that having somebody become a member of the community is very valuable. I noted that when Ken Knight bought his house, that was my first question to him was, is it in town limits? And his response was, it's annexable, which was true. But I just think that having somebody live under the same rules that they're enforcing is just makes the process probably more easier to swallow for the rest of us.
Anybody else? I would say no. I think that if we want to get somebody local, then having the flexibility to live outside of town is really advantageous. And again, looking at the police and even when we're playing the police, they are not able to live in this community. And if you have a family and you're trying to support a family, if you're a single mom or a single father and trying to support a family, 1,500 and then trying to support a family on this kind of wage is just not feasible. I think the flexibility, we have a lot of talent out on these mesas. And to say, no, we're not gonna hire somebody out on this mesa because they don't live in town is silly. So no, I don't think that's a good requirement. Yeah, right.
My comment is based on availability of housing, rental housing in the town of Pinellas.
Yeah.
In within the town limits, more than the necessarily the community buy-in from living in the community. There's pros and cons to that, both ways. But that would be my concern for the town more than anything, is the availability of housing within the town is very, very limited. Sometimes if available at all, and so if you are trying to bring someone from the outside and state that they have to live here and they can't find housing, then you do limit your ability. I also want to note that of all of those appointed positions, that also includes your treasurer, and your treasurer does not live within town. So,
Yeah.
I wanted to follow up on your comment, make sure that you understand that the monthly is $4,600.
Yeah, I know, but again, that is not take home. That is gross. That is not net. Yeah.
And I put forth that renting a 3-bedroom apartment or a 3-bedroom house in this town is nowhere near available at 1,500. You can get an apartment for that, a 1-bedroom. And that's it. And
If
those
you
are,
can find
if you can find, they're hard to find.
Yes.
So I'm just wondering if you'd be happy if the clerk lived in Delta. I mean, I just
If
want
they
to.
made it, yeah, if they could make it to their job, yeah.
The commute is 40 minutes.
And we have people who live here and commute to Dover.
Yeah, I'm just asking, because I was thinking we could put zip codes in, but
No, because zip code ends on the other side of Delicious Orchard.
well, I was thinking bigger, Crawford zip code.
Okay.
Zip code.
county,
What's that?
county, within the county.
Yes, well, there we go.
Well,
They should live in the county.
Madison County line is 4.5 miles.
Although they could live at that little corner place, they go off to Crescent View.
The longest commute that I've heard of in this town is Grand Junction. I know somebody who is commutes every day.
Yes.
From Junction.
So
So it's not out of the question.
I think they should live in Delta County.
I don't think we should require.
Well, I guess it'll depend on if they get hired or not.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, there's that. Okay.
Worth that I drove to Aspen every day. 5 years and it's 100 miles.
Yeah, so.
That's because you're different. Just kidding. Holy moly. All right, one last thing.
Oh, yeah, we're looking at time.
I know.
Well, 2 things. One, let's not lower our candidate pool.
Yes,
By
please.
putting stuff in there like that, you lower your.
Yep.
candidate pool. We don't know what kind of candidate pool we're gonna get, so let's be careful. And then the other thing is, it's pretty obvious, we have ADU on here, we have other.
Yeah, we're not gonna make.
Number of things here, we're not gonna make. We start looking, it's gonna be.
Second. All in favor? Opposed? All right, carry on.
One last thing that we don't have to do right now, but the statute requires that we have compensation in our ordinance.
Right.
And we don't. Not that we have to do that right now. And Corinne it would be good to clean it up as well and addressing in town, out of town. And just stating the salaries set commensurate with the salary table set by the board of trustees or something like that. But we should plan to fix that. Yes. In the future. And that's all I can think of for the clerk.
Okay. Oh, you have something to say, Cindy?
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
First, the health insurance.
Oh, yes.
United.
Yes. And you're right. And I want to bring up. They don't have that.
The retirement is Empower for the 457.
Oh. Thank you. Our administrators are not going to want the job. Because they did it wrong. So, anything else? On that? Thank you. I wanted to point out that on the health insurance, I put in 90% of employee and family premium paid. Premium, the employees are paying the premium for the most part. We did that for the administrator. Because, but I don't know if you want to do that for the clerk. That's a extra generous. benefit, so. Okay, so everybody good with that? I'll fix that. It's just about the 90%. But, oh, wait a minute, are we paying? How much premium are we paying of the employees?
So it's 90% of employee only.
Only, yeah.
It's
Yeah.
if they want a family plan or to have their spouse on a tier.
Okay, I won't put that in here, but that's good to know. But, okay.
Okay, you have everything you need? I think so. All right, then let's move on to the master planning RFP. So. Put this together, questions, comments, if you'd like to get this posted and out. And get started on this master plan. So questions, concerns? Yes, Mr. Martin.
I was wondering if we could have a statement from, about the planning commission, last meeting where they proposed
Oh, yeah, we passed this, yes.
In the planning commission, had quite a discussion about whether we were asking for a big roaring for tire kind of firm, or whether we wanted to encourage people with the local skill sets of facilitation, planning, and writing to encourage them to apply, because the original RFP came in looking like big firm again. I know I'm biased because of my experience with family in motion, feeling like it wasn't necessarily our plan. I would like to see local people step up to the plate, so I tried to write into that something that would encourage them to come on board. I'd like to see this money be spent locally in the community if possible. So that's why we include that. So we went around and around about that because there's a lot of pros and cons. There's some pros for people who really know what they're doing and come and do a slam dunk on it. But there's also some things about whether that really takes in flavor in the local community and knows the local community. So we're trying to get a balance. One thing we did do in the planning commission meeting is set our meeting for 2 days after the bids are open, because our plan is to review the proposals for the board, and the planning commission would actually make a recommendation to you. And that's where we think best practices are. So we'd really like this to be adopted tonight so we can get the RFP out and we meet those deadlines, because we really like to have this firm or person hit the ground running, even over the holiday period.
Yeah.
The last iteration of the master plan where we almost got it done, we used a master's degree student to do it, and that was very cost effective. And basically, we still have a lot of that information. I know we got to do the public meetings at the end and the surveys, and all of that has to be done. But we have a large chunk of that done, all of the history, all of the, we could just go ahead and use that. And that would save a ton of money.
Yeah. We've got maybe 10 or 12 different documents that put together since the last master plan that could all get put in. That's why. Because we've got a lot of information.
That's it. I don't know. We can put that in the.
It's in here.
Yeah. But
It's in
I
here.
don't know if that's, the big companies aren't gonna like that much. You know what I mean?
Too bad. Too bad.
Yeah, there is that.
Mr. Mark.
Yeah, I think that if we have something that is like a skeleton that we can flesh back out. I think that that's a good approach to have as a starting point. I just want to make sure that we don't start too far ahead. Because then we get into like starting in the wrong direction, basically. If we say, okay, we have these 12 whatever documents, and they say that people want this, and this, and we're going to work toward that, and that, and turns out, well, actually, nobody really thinks that anymore. It's way out of date.
Oh,
It's totally different. I just want to make sure that we take the content of whatever we're working with and make sure that it reflects current moods rather than just the structure of the document, the way it's put together.
That's what we have to do.
Right.
Okay, any other comments? Yeah.
I just wanted to point out that you really shouldn't be asking for electronic copies. people, nobody should see it. These should be sealed bids, sealed proposals. So I would remove that on the first page.
Sure.
And if you want an electronic copy, ask them to put a thumb drive in the envelope with the.
Okay. Perfect. Can do. All right.
And I mean, you might still want to know if you, do you want them to tell you that they're going to submit by Friday at 4? Is that a must-have thing? You can do that, I think, ask that, just have them give you a simple thing, but you don't want them to attach it.
I think we,
I frankly would get rid of all that electronic stuff, and if you want an e-copy, just get a thumb drive.
okay,
Or something like that, which
yeah.
is otherwise.
All right. Anything else? All right, so we can go ahead and make those changes and get that RFP out. Yeah,
I think you're doing my motion.
go ahead.
I'd like to make a motion that we do the RFP with the changes that trustee Smith has recommended.
I'll second that.
Comments from the board? Yeah,
Can we just enumerate the comments for the record?
sure. Is take out the electronic copy of this, put in thumb drive. And I would also take out the intent part and just have it submitted by 4 p.m. Friday. Yeah, see electronic copy or intent to submit.
Oh, okay.
Okay. All right. Anything else from the board? Anything from the public? Yeah, Ms. Watson.
I just wanted to point out in state statute 3123-205, staff and finances. It's talking about the planning commission may appoint such employees as it deems necessary for its work. So it's kind of interesting because gives a lot of power to the planning commission to make decisions here. I mean, obviously, you probably have to approve the amount that they're going to use, but the planning commission has a lot of autonomy that I just don't think, I think they're pretty clueless, actually, at realizing what their responsibilities and what their roles are and what their powers are. And I think it would be nice if the planning commission could actually read the statute together and really understand what their job is, instead of just handing it over to some contractor all the time. I mean, I support the fact that you need help, but you need to step up to the plate and read what your obligations are here and what powers the statute gives you. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else? All right, seeing none, we have a motion and a second to approve the RFP with changes enumerated. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that motion passes. All right.
And I asked a follow-up question outside of the motion, and it was, what outlets are you gonna use to get the word out on this? Because you really have to be fast about it.
Probably, CML, but you know, the usual
There's
stuff.
planning professional groups that are looked at, right? So out to those types of places. We want to put in local papers because we want to attract the local.
Right, just curious, because that's key.
Yeah, so we'll go back to the shopper, the PCI and all the rest of those little things.
And I suggest that we go to DU, CSU and CU.
Oh,
because
how
they all
about,
have
yeah,
programs.
Mesa State.
And Mesa State may have a program. I don't know about that.
All right, next up is Wendell County Board Members. So we need a member of the board. The board member of. It is late. A person from the Board of Trustees to the I-1 Delta County Board. If we want to have somebody on the West County. Yeah, go ahead.
It's actually a twofold. First, the initial requirement for 3 years to participate in One Delta County is up this year. So as of right now, continued participation in One Delta County is in the budget, but it's not a requirement of the board. Second, I've been the member on the committee, and yes, someone else would need to pick that up in my stead. I did include documents that gave information about what One Delta County has provided. And I do think that One Delta County is a good organization, but my opinion is that it is very city of Delta focus. And there has not been a significant, any kind of significant participation outside of that area. And I would just make the board aware of that, my perspective of that moving forward.
Yeah, Mr.
So one of the things is they have explored the old Okie Tech Elementary School. And that's a possibility if they have the wherewithal and the drive to go through with that. I know there's a number of issues with that, but it would be a real great thing if we had a development there rather than it gets torn down.
I doubt it's gonna get torn down, but yeah, and there's another Payoneer project that they're working on. So there are at least two, yeah.
In what capacity, or I haven't heard about this.
Oh, it's in there.
They explored getting somebody buying it and getting in there and doing a mixed development. And I assume mixed development, I have very I'm thinking workplace and living facilities. And that would be a very advantageous thing for the town.
No, you mentioned another.
Yeah, there's a potential manufacturing facility for rural jumpstart. It's property.
Like a specific location like this?
They didn't mention specific.
General.
For a volunteer.
Yes.
I can tell you that for the first 2.5 years, they only ever met in Delta. In the last 6 months, they have started to spread out a little bit to be a little bit more available to the other areas in the county. So they are having meetings sometimes in Hutchinson. And you can attend remotely.
Oh, okay. That makes it a lot easier. I'll volunteer if the board will have. And I'll go.
Someone have to make a motion?
I make a motion that Rick Stelter be our representative.
All right, so I have a second.
And I just want to point out on this thing, it says a fifth potential manufacturing facility has been identified for rural jumpstart in 2023. They are looking at purchasing the property in the Paonia area. Is that the building?
No, no, that's.
It's generalized.
Yeah.
They don't have a site.
Right. Exactly.
Oh, okay.
All right, so can we get a second on the motion for Rick? All right, discussion from the board.
Last time I volunteered, I got all expense paid trip to Southeast Asia. So. I hope it's one of the friends out there.
Sir.
Let's say thanks for volunteering.
Yes, anything from the public? All right, we have a motion in a second for Mr. Stelter to be our volunteer on One Delta County. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that motion passes.
Could I get the contact information and send it to me?
Yeah.
I'd like to make a motion that we continue the accessory dwelling unit to the next meeting. And it's for selfish reasons, because I'd like to be sure the personnel committee can talk about the memo that I put on all of your desks. So,
All right, so we have a motion to move the ADU ordinance to the next meeting.
Second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry. Jill told me, I don't know what she's going to say, but she told me she had some thoughts about this. I asked her to come tonight so she could share them. We recognize them.
Yeah. Well, we
Shake your
can
head.
do that, we can do that remotely at the next meeting as well, too.
Sorry. Since this motion pertains to this,
Okay.
I already emailed you all.
yes.
Yes.
That's all I have to say.
Okay, and I wanted to add that we should get that in the packet.
Yeah.
For
Okay.
this discussion.
All right. All in favor? Opposed? All right, that passes.
Mayor?
Yeah.
Pertaining to that, we have issues with zoning and lot coverage that we need to resolve, as well as ADUs. And this is a great start. but we've got
Exactly.
Lots of issues that we have to deal with.
Right, and I think some of this needs to get put into that meeting.
Right.
So, yeah, that's good. Good thing. This is gonna take more than, I don't have a lot. All right. And so finance, we did checks today, so that's done. Parks, we already, yes.
Here's your clerk.
The only thing I wanted to say at the mayor's report is I was gonna put the 2017-06 on the next agenda, and that I would hopefully everyone could bring suggestions for that code of conduct to the next meeting, and that we can work on it. And that my report is in the packet. All right. Parks, we already have. Do you have anything you want to add to parks?
Yes, it was suggested that we do a review of the payout motion plan. And I wonder if that. What we've done is we've been meeting in the parks, reviewing the payout motion plan every single month. Since the plan was adopted, since we started the Parks Committee. So I'm wondering, do we need to do a formal, I think what was requested before, so we have some kind of a formal review in a quarter, but we're doing it every single month. Parks Committee.
Okay.
So I don't know, I want to hear the desire of the board.
Oh.
Because it was suggested that we have some kind of a formal review of payout motion. Basically, each park we've been meeting in, looking at the payout motion plan for the park, trying to set priorities for the park, and letting you know where we're going.
Yes.
Well, going back to meetings. We had a motion and approval to bring the union motion up for discussion in September.
Right. And it was moved to October.
Right, so you guys moved it to October.
Yeah, because he wasn't gonna be
But
available.
it got usurped by the BOM, because we're not gonna be able to get a payout motion review at the same time during the BOM. Like that things. So we don't have time to do that.
Well, I mean, basically, my question is that like the pay union motion, the reason that I wanted to discuss it, and I guess I don't know when it's gonna happen at this point, the board direction was not followed, so.
It was followed. Unfortunately, the needed to happen to make it become an agenda item did not happen, so it could not become an agenda item.
As far as I know, there's nothing to.
Yes, I spoke with Mr. Knudsen about this to put it on the agenda, and he said he wanted to take it to the Parks Committee first and have them review it and then bring it to the board, and that could not happen because they needed to do the BLM thing first, and so it needed to go there first.
To be perfectly clear, it could have happened. It did not. Because they didn't want it to, and he had a reason. Okay, regardless. The reason that I wanted to discuss it, because I disagree with some of the premises of their rationale for the choices they took in the first place. So regardless of whatever specific concerns or ideas might be included for specific parks, and I appreciate the opportunity to do that, so I have to take advantage of it. The premises are what I disagree with, and that was the discussion I was hoping to have in September. So I'm kind of disappointed that there's been further discussion. It wasn't before the board, after the board already made a motion to have that discussion. Beyond that, I do have, before we get out of meeting, I would like to make a motion to add something to next week's or next meeting's agenda, if I could.
All right, well, we really do need to get to the personnel committee because we have some decisions we need to make on the personnel committee on the executive director. So let's move on to that.
Okay, all good. Everybody has a copy in front of them, and I had copies at the back table for anybody that might have stopped. I wasn't able to get in the packet. John and I spoke with Dana Levesque, who had some really good suggestions about some of the process for interviewing, and I wanted to put this in front of you all because there's a couple decision points we need to make, and one of those is Dana thought it'd be good to have a third. We have Steve Barwick and Bill Crank who are going to they'll be our initial screening committee. And Daniel Beck thought it would be good to have someone kind of local there have a third person, and he suggested like maybe the Delta Town Manager, County Administrator, somebody from CML, somebody from Sursa, and I have, Bill Crank came back today and said he knows a woman who used to be the assistant director in Delta, City of Delta, and also worked for Delta County, who's retired and lives in Crawford. Yeah, I got her name.
Susan here.
Yes, that's it.
Perfect.
She's really good.
So, okay. So if you're good with, she is the third person, does anybody have any contact information for her? Anyway,
I do.
okay, if you're okay with that, I will reach out to her and see if she would be able to.
I'm sorry, I don't know Susan, I wonder if I could get more background as to.
She was county administrator for like 25 years. And she was a meeting facilitator, and that woman can do a meeting. She taught me things about doing meetings, and she's wonderful.
The county manager of the year for the entire state of Colorado.
So if she is not willing, are you willing to let me and John and I find a third person kind of quickly so we can get this started? Okay, and then he said it would be really good to have this committee so they can look at the desired technical skills that we're looking for and screen on that. He said it'd be best if, they chose maybe, we have 24 applications, and said it would be best if we, 6 to 8, no more than 10. And what I wanted, hang on, I've got notes. So we'll get that third person, and then depending on how many candidates there are from their screening, we have 2 choices of where to continue. But let me back up, and I'm going to share all of the applications with each of the trustees and Steve Barwick and Bill Crank, who have signed the confidentiality agreement. I've not found a platform that I can share them with you all without you all being able to download or do anything else with them. So I'm just throwing this out. None of these applications can be shared in any way, shape, or form. If by doing so, it violates the Open Meetings Act. The only applications that would become public is when we choose finalists. Then there's actually a public notice process that has to go on. And Dana Levesque had some suggestions, which is if we do an interim interview, because we have quite a few interim candidates, this is the process he suggested, which is in the left-hand column. If there are, say, 4 to 5 finalists, we could jump to the finalist interview and not do the interims. So I just want you all to see this, and we can talk about it later once we see how many candidates come out of that initial screening. But if you're good with that so far, so that, and I just want you to know the administrator advertisement was $666, and I hope that's not an indication of anything. And do we want to discuss the potential for having to find an interim administrator?
I think the timeline is such that we are not going to be able to fill this position and have any kind of training or any kind of being able to appoint the new administrator with what we have without an interim. Yes.
We have the same issue with an interim administrator. We don't have time to find one, interview them, and get that person hired. We've run the town without an administrator before. It's a nightmare, but it can be done if it's short term. We did it for, years, and that was a real mistake. And they actually said that we're saving the town money by not hiring an administrator, and it bit us in the ass.
But how many years ago was that, Rick?
It was when you were hired.
Yeah, there was no administrator when I was hired.
10 years ago. A lot has changed in 13 years.
But like I say, we don't have time to look for an interim administrator unless we have one on hand. And we hire them raw.
Well,
And they don't have time to be trained too.
how
So
long
what we're
did
doing is we're hiring an interim administrator. Then they're getting caught up to speed. And then we're gonna hire the administrator, and the interim administrator is gonna stay for a while, and we're paying them both. I don't see that that's productive.
So when was the last time we had interim?
Or right before Ken Knight was hired,
Right, how long did it take to get that interim?
at least 30 days,
So
maybe more.
Was that through CNO?
Yeah, they participated.
Are they pretty good about trying to find candidates?
As I recall, that was just lucky there was somebody available.
It's on the board for that.
okay,
So I think CML will put forward 4 or 5 names.
you know, they have a list there.
Yeah. I think you're making a mistake by trying to hire a permanent administrator. I think what you should be looking for is an interim administrator.
So
We don't know what you're looking for.
exactly, we can take our time and take this process as long as we need to take to get it going.
If
And
you
still be able to drive the
We're
town.
advertising for an interim.
Yeah.
Okay, so the process that Mr. Brewer is talking about is the process that the board had taken previously, but the board had discussed at the time they didn't want to do that, which was an interim was brought in who had a basis and ran the cursory day-to-day operations of the town while they acted in that capacity of soliciting applicants and information providing to the board for the permanent administrator position. At the time that the board had made the decision to separate the positions, it was discussed, but the board had not wanted to move in that capacity. So if you did, you would be stopping what you've done and bringing in an interim and then having that interim pick up the process, which would basically, my assumption would be pretty much starting over.
We did have one application for a guy who only wanted to be interim.
Yeah, Suzanne?
So we have had 2 interims. One was Steve Robbie. And he was here for only about 3 months. He wasn't here long. None of our interims have actually been here very long. And it actually didn't take much time to do the permanent hire. So I think, look, you still have October, November, December. I know we have some holidays coming up, but I think you guys are doing a really good job with your time frame, and you do have some applicants. And it's not like you can wait 6 more months for these applicants. You really will have to be having to start all over again if you do this with an interim doing the hiring for you. And Steve Robbie was here specifically to do hiring, and so was Dan Dean. They really didn't want to take on too much detailed town stuff until, I mean, Dan Dean probably did a little bit more, and Steve kind of got some systems in place, but their primary job was to do the hire. And I don't think Rick Stelter's out of line saying that we're not going to collapse without an administrator. I mean, if it's just 2 or 3 weeks, I mean, I really think with your committee system that you have now, you know, we're not going to fall apart and crumble. Look, Hotchkiss doesn't have an administrator and they're doing just fine.
Yeah, it was time for Hotchkiss. Yeah.
Hotchkiss is pretty big. They have a big budget.
Well, my opinion, which take it as you will, is that I don't think your issue is that you may have a few weeks, a month or so without an administrator, but you're gonna have that without a clerk. And I honestly would think that you would be in more of a situation of not having somebody in as your clerk than the administrator.
Yeah, I was just thinking, just putting together the packet. I did it once and the packet was abysmal. Because Corinne was sick with COVID. Just putting together a packet for a meeting. And that's just one tiny little piece of that job.
Maybe we have a smaller packet in those times.
And we still, and just knowing what needs coming, we've got 2 signs up for liquor licenses. That whole process. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that's happening that needs to be tracked and taken care of. And this is not a, well, let's just follow through it kind of job. It is not. Yes, Michelle.
Yeah, so my comment is, you have a deputy clerk. And you have a clerk that's in place for another 2.5 months. Okay, I don't know the timeline, but you have someone in place who has the knowledge of what needs to be done and who might be able to provide some tools for the person stepping in to help them get through that first month. I see you shaking your head. I don't, that's.
The truth of the matter is the deputy clerk does not have the knowledge to step in. She really does.
If the board can provide some training to your existing staff and say, here's what we need to run kind of bare bones, keep the office going day to day for a month. You should be able to do that. It's hard for me to fathom that would not be possible and that you would just devolve into chaos in 1 month.
This person.
The deputy clerk is currently working on a part-time capacity, 3 days a week. And the deputy clerk has explicitly stated that she is not able to attend meetings and perform some of the specific duties that are being discussed.
Who's gonna take minutes?
Word count.
Who's gonna post all? Who's going to? And these are the little things. These are not the big things.
6 months.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but I, like, you're creating this big issue, but cancel meetings for 1 month. You don't hold meetings for that amount of time. It's happened before. You already canceled one in December anyway for the holidays. There are ways around it. It just sounds very doom and gloom without actually putting forward ways to work around the issue or create training for the issue or like have options. That's all I'm saying. You've got options, explore your options.
Yeah.
We have a motion on the table.
No.
We need one.
If you think so.
I don't have one to give. I'm
Oh.
kind of like, we're kind of wandering in the conversation here. I was wondering if we might have some direction as to where we might need to end up.
Well, I would like Ms. Ferguson's opinion as to whether we can muddle along. So say, I mean, just hypothetically, her house sells in the next 30 days. And she is gone in 30 days.
Which makes
Can we operate without a clerk and a town administrator until we hire? If you're gone in 30 days?
yes, but I don't believe it. I believe things will fall through. Mayor Becker, again, I am tired of, and I realize that that the staff members may be the only ones that hear it, but I am tired of sitting in meetings, having to listen to myself being degraded and disparaging comments being made about me by community members so that I can hear them constantly. You ask me questions repeatedly. I try to provide information, which is my job to do. And I'm constantly and consistently being berated by certain community members who attend our meetings and have issues with the way that I've done my job. I am not going to be here doing it for much longer. I'm happy that the town is going to have other people coming in to do it. I want them to be successful. I'm trying to be very honest. I have taken on extreme volumes of work that don't have necessarily always the time to do cross training and with limited capacity within staff. And I understand that there are members who are frustrated by my comments and don't appreciate the fact that I'm talking, but I'm tired of this. I'm tired of this. And I'm doing my very best to provide the board and the community and the staff that is here that is completely devastated and torn apart and upset and concerned about having to continue to work for the community and the board with the way that people are treated and the way that things are run. I will not continue to sit in meetings at this point if these kind of things are going to continue to happen. I will not. I will not attend the meetings anymore. I'm letting the board know now. If this continues, I will modify my resignation effective immediately.
This is a very good opportunity to spring. It's. Staff. Working, what you're working on, get it down to the basics. And everybody will do that. And it won't take as much time as you are all taking now. What the heck? This meeting is going on to 10 o'clock now? Wait for a
We have 1 minute.
A motion to extend for 5 minutes.
All right, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay, couple of things. One, in deference to the discussion we were having previously, I would like to reiterate, I'm not sure how it was phrased last time. I don't want to try and bring the same motion before the table, but I would like the board to consider the option of creating a ordinance or resolution that directs that no two full-time jobs be tasked to one person in the future.
Okay.
I think that's reasonable. And I'm not gonna make that motion again. I kind of made this up before and it got shot down. So I'll pass on that. If somebody else wants to bring it up, I think that it might solve the clerk problem we're discussing. Regarding Corinne's comments, again, I haven't heard anything. I'm not gonna ask anybody to repeat them so that we can hear them. Hopefully we don't have to lose our current administrator due to meeting the quorum is the wrong word because that only works on this side, meeting procedure. Okay.
Okay. Yes.
Is it worth a phone call to Kevin Baumer at CML?
Yes.
Do you want me to call him? Do you want to call him?
I will call Kevin. No, I will try to.
Mostly just to see. I actually feel like we could probably have somebody in here in January. I was saying December, but, and I think our timeline on the administrator was, we talked about pushing it to February, but it's done. That was September 30th. Tentative start date is January 23. But given the applications and we have 3 people to get started, I kind of think we can get somebody in here.
Well, I'll call Kevin.
But yeah, call anyway, just to be
And I
sure.
will get his opinion.
Do they have interim clerks?
Yeah.
Yeah, I will ask.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
I know.
Did you have a motion? You wanted to do?
It was too close to something that was chucked
All right,
out.
all right. All right, so anything else we need to take care of? Yes, Mr. Knudsen.
Couple things. One, what about these towns that live near us? Can't we tap their clerks or their staff to kind of give us some assistance temporarily? I mean, I'm trying to think out of the box here about what we might be able to do to kind of cover the bases and use resources. I think getting an interim administrator is just adding $20,000 or $30,000 to our budget. Yeah. Why can't we accelerate our process and just start this screening process like next week or the week after? The screening process is under our control. We can get that done, get it down to the narrow canvas. I don't see why we couldn't do final interviews by first week of November.
No, I don't see that happening.
Well,
Only because
having done hundreds of hiring processes, it depends on the urgency of people that are there in their time.
it's October 13th. You know, these are 3 volunteers. We have to give them time.
I don't know if Geo Garverson was in town. She used to be the clerk for the town of Canada. Or deputy clerk quite some time ago. She may be someone to talk to.
Yeah, I don't have any contact information. All right.
I can get.
Yeah, before we adjourn, I'd like to add an agenda item to our next meeting. I don't know if it's going to be a special meeting or a regular meeting, but I think that the current status of the Delta County Library system and the threat to our local library merits at least a statement or some investigation or some action on the point of this board. And I don't know what committee it might go in, so I can bring it up to committees.
Actually, I could reach out to the library district and see if we can get somebody to come up.
A representative to come talk to would be excellent. Thank you.
Okay. All right, can do.
Yeah, so moved. I move that we direct the mayor to invite a representative of the library district to speak at our next meeting.
I second that.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right, got it.
Thank you.
Anything else? All right, the meeting is adjourned.